Hello, hello, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing. Speaking louder.
That's 1, 2, check. Okay, let's make sure we got one line. Everything's good there?
Yeah.
Everyone's good in. Let me see the
We got
test 1, 2, and then let's double check, make sure it's streaming. They're on it. Okay. Okay, we're gonna start pretty soon for those online. And it's showing. Okay, I think that's good. We're gonna get started. We just put a few things here. We're gonna have to change sets really quickly in between things. But I'm going to, I missed the slide last week, so I'm just gonna kind of talk about that slide. I'll do a voiceover on that. In fact, if you want, Kyle, you can just get close up on these two slides where they can't see my shirt, and yeah, and then we'll put that back up when we're done with those two slides. And then, so this is where we're going to be going through today. You guys get a good treat. We're going to go through a lot of good stuff. I've got to cover two slides that I missed from last week, so I can edit those in. Then I'm going to do a conclusion for the Thriveless step number 5, so I can just get that done because I don't want to think about it anymore. And that should take like 2 minutes or so. Then we're going to go to Transportation, which should be pretty quick. I'm going to ask you questions that I want you guys to start thinking about. And remember, this is being recorded for tens of thousands, hopefully hundreds of thousands of people we're trying to help around the world. And so with this in mind, remember to contribute, but don't take over. Does that make sense? Make sure it's something relevant, that it's helpful, it supports me, it doesn't compete with me, if that makes sense. And also, if there's something that can help people, that's the biggest thing. If we can help people, that's what we're trying to do. So have fun with this. If you guys want to comment, raise your hand. Just let me pick you. Let's talk a lot. I'm going to probably, when we get to the transportation one, I want you guys to think about this a little bit, because I'm going to probably start out by asking, I forgot to do a slide on this. I'm probably going to ask you, like in an emergency when the gasoline's gone and everything else, why do you even need transportation? What are the reasons why you would want to get from one place to another? And there's a lot of reasons you guys can bring up: communication, telling people what's happening if you can't communicate with other ways, supplies, checking on people, first aid, whatever. You guys can come up with whatever you want to, okay? But we'll start out with that and then get right into it. So, Kyle, if you can, let's do a sound check real quick. That's one too. Okay, we're on. And let me just make sure this looks okay. What is it? Oh, water. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay. So let me just, what I'll do, Kyle, does this look okay, or is it weird? Is it in a weird place? It's all right. Okay, if you can get just above my logo, so you can't really see my logo, would be awesome. And then let me just talk about these two real quick, and then we'll get to the next one. So tell me when you're ready. Oh, thank you. Good. I'm glad you saw that. Can everybody turn off their cell phones, by the way? Make sure they don't go off. And if your cell phone goes off, you'll have to do 10 jumping jacks in front of everybody, 50 push-ups, and sing a yodeling song. Say again? Exactly, cardiologist, exactly. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to capture these couple slides that from last week that somebody brought up a really good thing. Who was it? I don't think he's here. Is he? I don't see him. About the oil. I thought that was pretty cool as well, so I'm going to bring that up. Okay, tell me when you're zoomed in and ready to go, and I'll go ahead and get started. We good? Okay, another liquid fuel that people like quite a bit is white gas. You've probably heard of that or seen it. It's the one that Coleman made famous, right? You can use it for the lanterns, you can use it for the stoves. That's a really good one, as well as denatured alcohol. My recommendation, if you're going to get either one of those, is leave it sealed. If you're not going to use it, leave it sealed. I've seen people open that up, literally pop it open 20, 30 years later, and it still works just fine. But you don't want any contaminants, you don't want water or anything else getting in it that's going to mess it up over time. So just leave it sealed. And I'm going to give one more suggestion. And I'm going to give one more suggestion also when it comes to liquid fuels. This is just an idea. This is just something I'm going to start over again. And then I'm going to give one more suggestion when it comes to liquid fuels. I want you to be creative. There's so many things you can use. For example, engine oil. If all the cars in the neighborhood are never going to go on again, big EMP attack, or all the fuel is never going to be turned on again, and we're in a bad situation, you can drain oil from a car. It's going to have a lot of black smoke coming up from it and everything. It's going to have a lot of black smoke coming up from it, but it's a fuel and you can use it. So the idea is be creative, think outside the box. That's the biggest thing during an emergency. Just be creative, think outside the box. Okay, so I think that's going to be good enough for those slides. Go ahead and do a close-up on me. I'm going to do the conclusion for Thrivalist step number, I don't know who has it. I think it's up here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move just a tiny bit somewhere else, and like a little bit. And then if you can zoom in. Okay, ready? Tell me when you're good. Awesome, you got through Thrivalist step number 5. That's a big one. That's huge. I'm going to put this down. I don't really need it. Congratulations, you got through Thrivalist step number 5. That's huge. That's so hard. That was so much information you went through, and hopefully you really enjoyed it. Hopefully it helped your emergency preparedness get to the next level. Now, we have 2 more sections left, and we're done with this course. That's amazing. You've done that much work. These two sections coming up are pretty small compared to the rest of it, but they're super important as well. So keep going, don't quit. Let's finish up this course, get your family prepared, and let's get to the next step, which is Thrivalist step number 6, where we're going to talk about maintaining your standard of living. Okay, I got through one more video. Done. Okay. I probably should have smiled instead of doing this. You know? Okay, so let's see where we're going to go to. Let's do transportation next. And I'm going to pull this up. Anybody want to ride this while I'm setting anything up? It's kind of cute, huh? Took it from my daughter. She's probably looking for it right now. Let's see if I can pull this up right here. And we'll put this up here. Didn't we have something else you took down? Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. So I'll put this up here then. It's because it's cute. Okay, is this the only thing that came down? All right, let me switch presentations. Hi, Mitzi, how are you?
Good. How are you, Marcelo?
Awesome.
Good. Marcelo, I have a question. How are you doing?
You bet.
Can you do denatured alcohol in the Coleman soap?
Denatured alcohol in a Coleman soap. I've never tried that. It's a good question. Does anybody know? I would imagine you can. I just don't know if it ruins it. So I'm not too sure. Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay, let's get started with transportation. I'm going to show you guys kind of what we're going to be talking about. Flip through it so you can see. We're going to talk about different things you can do. I mean, if electricity is available, you have electricity, you can get some fuel. You know, these are all the things you can do, right, transportation-wise. So that's what we're going to go through, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, why isn't it going? There it goes. We're going to talk a little bit about navigation, and then we're going to end this. So this is a very quick one. So let me just see, why didn't it do this? It's like really slow. There it goes. Okay, and I'll probably ask some more ideas from you guys if you have anything else. Okay, and okay, there, I think we're good. Okay, deep breath. Yeah, awesome, good, thanks. We are talking about transportation and navigation. Pretty fun little topic here. And before we get deeper into it and talk about the different ways that you can transport yourself during an emergency, a long-term emergency where you might not have access to gasoline or to pump stations or to diesel or whatever you need to get, right, to be able to get the transportation going. But I'm totally went ADD for a second. I'm sorry. I don't know what but was going to go to. Let's go and start up again. Let's go. Hi. Is anybody else coming in, or come on in? Go ahead. I'll wait for you. I'm ADD, so it throws me off. So no, it's okay. It's just it was perfect timing. I actually stopped on purpose, so right before you came in. So thank you. That was, yeah. Thank you for coming in right then. Okay. We are on transportation and navigation, a really fun topic. And when you think about it, during a long-term emergency where the lights go out, there's no power, you can't get any pumping gas anymore. Maybe you have solar at home, you can use that. Maybe you have a stash of diesel, or you can make your own biodiesel or whatever. But transportation is still important during an emergency. You still have to get to some places for different reasons. And I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to open this up to you if we can get the microphone around. Why would you even need transportation options during a long-term emergency? Let's have some of you go ahead right up here. Hold on a sec.
Medical facility.
Yeah,
or
to get
emergency medical facility.
Get to a medical facility if there's one up, right? Or if there's a neighborhood little area that they've set up, right? Go ahead.
If it's long term, you're going to want to see your family that lives,
Yeah.
20 miles away.
Yeah. So you're going to want to check on people, right? And you're going to want to be careful and everything else, right? What else?
Go fishing to eat fish.
There you are, to go collect food, right? Find food. That's a big one. Okay.
Maybe you have to evacuate.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you just need to get out and you need some way of getting your stuff, whatever you need, right, to be able to get out. So that's awesome. Any other ideas before we get started? One back here.
Just all the reasons we go somewhere now, we'll still need to transport ourselves during an emergency.
Absolutely. And if you have something you have to carry, it's a lot easier to have something on wheels and in your hand, right? Especially if it's heavy or dirty or whatever else. And communication. I mean, if communication is down and you need to tell something to somebody just a couple blocks away, it's easier to get on a bike or whatever else to get there, right? Any other ideas before we get started? Okay, awesome. Let's go through some different options of transportation. Now, everybody lives in different places. People online that are watching this, people on, watching this course, they're all over the place. And some of them are in the mountains. Some of them are right at the beach. Some of them are next to a lake. I mean, it's just so different. So I'm going to just give a ton of different options. And afterwards, when we get to the end, I'm going to ask you guys what kind of options would serve you the best. I'd like to hear from you at the very end as well. So first of all, if there's electricity, if there's gas, if there's a way of getting fuel, if you have some type of fuel efficient car or motorcycle, use it. Why not, right? If you got a motorcycle or a fuel efficient car, just use it. Also, there's biodiesel. A lot of people talk about that, getting, pre-1970 cars that don't have all the electrical stuff, and I can't remember what year it is. But also, people create biodiesel fuel at home, and they have all the things they need to be able to create that, and they can use it in their cars, in their motorcycles, just to be able to keep going during an emergency, using even lard, using anything they can get fat-wise. Okay, there's off-road vehicles, which are super important and also very handy as well. Let's go ahead and sit down. Okay. Thanks. So there's off-road vehicles as well where they don't. I get a little ADD. Sorry. I don't know why it is. It's like my brain just goes. So anyways, where were we? Off-road vehicles. Okay. There's off-road vehicles as well where they don't take up a lot of gas or energy, and there's electric vehicles that are off-road. There's gasoline, biodiesel, a whole bunch of different ones that you can pick from. There's baby seats and baby strollers and backpacks for babies if you have little ones. There's gas and electric mopeds and scooters. There's non-powered scooters. I've got a powered scooter right here behind me. You can see right here. This is something I use quite a bit, but I thought I'd bring my little daughters. The funny thing is, when I was leaving the house, my kids went outside to play, and they're probably looking for this right now. She doesn't even know I took it. But my daughter loves this little thing, and she's probably like, where is it? But we use skates, we use skateboards, we use scooters, anything that we can, powered, non-powered. I'm a California boy. I grew up 10 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from Disneyland, horrible childhood. I mean, what do you do, right? And my buddies were surfers. We did surfing, skateboarding, and everything. So I still skateboard. I mean, I'm 55 years old, almost 56, and I love skateboarding. And this is a great way to get around. People down the street are like, what is he doing, right? In Utah, some California boy going down the street. But it's fun, and it's easy just to pull out any time to be able to get to wherever I need to. Now, there's a lot of bike options that you can use as well. You have trailers for bikes. First of all, let me go back a little bit. Let me just make sure I'm talking about the same thing. There it is. So you have bicycles also, electric bike, regular. So you have bicycles and electric bicycles, and you have attachments you can put on the bike, little bike seats in the front, you have baskets in the front. Let me try that over again. So you have bicycles, electric bicycles, attachments for those bicycles where you can put little baskets in the front or little trailers in the back. There's so many options. There's so many options when it comes to bicycles. I probably should have done this. Let me do this since I brought it. Then you also have bicycles where you can do regular bicycles or electric bicycles. You can add attachments to them where there's baskets in the front or you have little trailers in the back. There's so many things you can do with baskets. Boy, I had it. So, yeah, the thing is, towards the end, I usually show myself instead of the video, or instead of the frame. So I have to kind of cover enough that I can do it without a slide, if that makes sense. So let me just do that one again, so I at least have enough to edit in. Then there's bicycles, electric bicycles. You can add attachments. You can put baskets in the front, trailers in the back. There's so many options with bicycles. Everybody should have a bicycle who's able to ride a bicycle. There, I see I had it. Everybody should have a bicycle who's able to ride a bicycle. It was so close, you guys. Everybody should have a bicycle who is able to ride a bicycle. I can't even say it. Can somebody else get up here? Please. Bike. Okay. I'm almost tempted to just do it because I think I can get through the word bicycle, right? So anyways, if you have the option of getting a bicycle, you should get a bicycle if you can ride a bicycle. Now I smiled, but I just messed it up. Okay, here goes. If you can ride a bicycle, you have that option. You should get a bicycle. It's just an easy, quick way of getting around without any fuel anytime you need to during an emergency situation. Next is going to be wagons and wheelbarrows or anything you can use to be able to get things around where you don't have to carry them by hand, especially if they're dirty and whatever else like we talked about. Can you hold up or? Okay. Is it super important?
It fits right here.
Okay, what is it?
Bicycling is the world's second most common form of transportation. Walking is number one.
Yeah.
And much of the population of the world, they don't have roads and automobiles.
That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. So push carts, dollies. Push carts and dollies is another one. This is something I have at home right here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but I've got a couple of these at home. They're pretty awesome. I use them for my 72-hour kits to be able to take them out if I need to, right? My grab-and-go kits, and everything's all loaded up with extra food and everything else on my wagons and on my dollies. So at home, if you were to watch the video earlier in the course, you'll see my wagon and you'll see my dolly. The cool thing about these dollies, I just got one of these, is that you can transform that really easily into a cart. Yeah. And it's pretty awesome. You can use it for different things. So I think those two are ones that people should get, personally. Let's see. If you're a little bit older, just make sure you have a wheelchair that's not electric, and you can use those, I call them a mega, anyways, they're not called megas. So it's flexible stretchers. So if you're a little bit older, make sure you have a wheelchair or something. If you can't get around easily, that's not electric, and you can get the flexible stretchers if somebody needs to move you from place to place. There's obviously walking, jogging, hiking, and if you're going to do that, make sure you have the right, obviously there's walking, jogging, and hiking, and if you're going to do that, make sure you have the right shoes, boots that you have stored up for emergencies, just in case, so that you can use them. You don't have to go out and buy, that's too long. Let's try it again. Then there's walking, jogging, and hiking, but just make sure if you're going to, then there's walking, jogging, and hiking, and make sure if that's part of your plans that you have the right shoes, the boots, and everything else you need to be able to do your hiking, jogging, or walking wherever you need to go. Hold on. There's air transportation for some of you out there. There's water transportation if you're close to a lake or some type of river or other body of water like a sea or ocean. There's winter transportation. I heard that. Animal transportation. How many of you, by the way, how many of you here have horses, have access to horses, have ever had a cow pull some type of cart or anything like that? Any of you guys here? Yeah, so it's a pretty cool thing. When I think about emergencies, I think about, I want to live in a place where I have neighbors with all that stuff. Where if we can't get around with anything else, at least we have animals to help us pull things or help us whatever, right, during an emergency. And one other suggestion I'm going to make is if you're gonna have ways of getting around during an emergency, make sure you have extra supplies. I know at our house, we have extra tires for the bikes. We have ways of fixing the tires if we need to with different, patches and whatever else, ways of filling up the tires. But whatever you're going to be using for your transportation, make sure you have the supplies you need. When you can't get to the store to fix it, you have the supplies to fix it yourself. So in this part right here, we just talked a lot about a whole bunch of different transportation methods. I'd like to hear from you guys. What are the ones that you would use the most during an emergency?
I did get an electric bike. I have solar in my house, so I can charge it
Awesome.
and helps me get around. And I've used it. I understand how it works.
Sweet. I love that. Okay, what else? Let's get a couple more.
I'm a bicycle racer. I do 100 miles in 4 hours.
hmm
So bicycling is a good one.
Yeah, bike's
I have
awesome.
both off-road and on-road.
Absolutely.
And then I have skis and snowshoes and everything else you could use
Yeah,
for
especially
hiking.
here where we have
Yes.
a ton of snow in the winter, right? Let's get one more. What else? What would you guys use during an emergency the most? Let's go right up here.
We have wagons and we have a bicycle.
Awesome. I love it. Good for you. Well, I put a list up here for you guys to use to be able to figure out what type of ideas. Did you have one more there, or was that okay? I put a list up here for you guys to use and look at the different options, and also inside the book, and also you can print out stuff if you need to. Go ahead and figure out what's going to be best for you and your family as far as transportation goes. Next is going to be navigation. There it goes. Okay, and navigation, I think I just have 3 slides. And I apologize, you guys. Sometimes I'm like really ADD, and then I have to pull out of it, and it's weird because either you can't focus at all or you hyper focus. If you can get me on a hyper focus, I can go really deep on things super quick. But for some reason I'm on a non-focus right now, so I'll pull into it hopefully in just a little bit. In fact, when we get to the power section, ask me questions. Let's go deeper. Don't try to take over the conversation, like I said, but ask me questions. Let me get into it, and I'll teach you a bunch of stuff that you guys would want to learn. All right, let's get into it. Now, another thing when it gets to transportation is navigation. How are you going to find places if you need to travel long distances? There's a lot of different options out there. Actually, I need to grab this stuff before I even start. Okay. Okay. Another part of transportation is obviously navigation. Most people know your neighborhoods, you know how to get around your cities, but sometimes you need to travel further and you don't really know how to get there unless you have some type of Google or Apple phone, that's helping you get there, right? But what would you do if you did need to travel, you didn't know the roads, you didn't need to know how to get there? Maybe it's the backcountry, like where I live, for example, I'm right next to a mountain. If I did have to escape into a mountain, if I did need to escape into let me try that again. If I did need to escape into the mountains, I'd want to know where the trails are and how to get around there without having to fight the snow and die out there, right, really quickly. So there's a lot of different options you can use. One I really recommend is everybody get some type of map. Now in my car, we have all these little paper maps. So I grabbed one of them, but there's another one in there as well. And here is a big road atlas that pretty much has everything in the whole United States if I ever needed it. I don't know if I ever will because I don't think I would travel that far, but it's not bad having one, right? Just in case you need it. You also have GPS like Garmin units and everything else where you can see a whole bunch of different maps. You can download maps from your iPhone or whatever else onto offline maps, right? You can download maps onto your phone so they're offline anytime you need them. And there's a whole bunch of little apps now that connect to GPS. I don't know if you've seen those. Any of you guys hunters? Any of you? Okay, so you get out there and stuff. You know what I'm talking about. There's these apps that you can get out there. In fact, I'll give you guys a couple of them. But One of them right here is Onyx. If you ever heard it, Onyx is one of them. There's about 2 or 3 other ones like that. Some of them I think are a little bit better in some ways than this app itself. But you can actually get out in the back country and you can find the trails and you can connect with GPS and know where you are at all times. And it's just pretty awesome. And they're right there on your phone without having to pay a ton of money for them. Also, if you have a compass, if you have geographical markers, I put a picture up here of arches. Obviously, if you get to arches, you're like, that's arches, right? If you get to, what is it, the presidency, I just went blank on the name. Thanks. If you get to Mount Rushmore, you'll notice it's Mount Rushmore, right? So if there's any geographical markers that can help you know that you actually got to the place you're trying to get to, that's a good way to do it too. And it doesn't have to be, Mount Rushmore arches. It can be something very simple as well. It could be a street sign, right? It doesn't matter. And then there's people who are really good at reading the stars, knowing the wind patterns, understanding that, east and west, and looking at the leaves and know exactly where you're at and knowing exactly where you're at using nature just by itself. So let me just see, I don't want to go. There it goes. Let's see. So go ahead and look at the lists and go ahead and look at this list I gave you guys and find out what type of navigation things that you would want to use to be able to help yourself out during an emergency if you had to travel a long distance. And get that done right now before we get to the next video. And let me just see, distances. So get that done. Let's get that done before we get to the next video, and make sure you decide on what type of transportation. So let me just back up and I'll say the whole thing. So let's just, before you get to the next video, let's go ahead and make sure that you decide on the transportation and navigation you'll need for your certain circumstances, for the things you're preparing for as far as emergencies go. And I'll see you on the next video. Okay, we got that done. Thank you guys. You guys are so kind. Thank you. Like, I feel like a Bobo brain right now, but is that a word, Bobo brain? I know you've heard of it before. Let's go to this one. Yeah, is he leaving?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's switching vehicles because mine's
Okay.
having problems, and it might need AAA on the way home.
Oh, you're
I'd
kidding.
rather not have it happen to me, so it's going to happen to him maybe on the way home.
Oh, awesome.
And
I mean, not awesome, but thank you for taking care of your wife. That's really nice. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Let's move all this, and then we'll get this next one done. Let's go ahead and put it over here. And thank you. Good thinking. Okay. Okay. Oops. Go ahead. And need to take a breath because I can tell, like, I'm speaking too fast, aren't I?
Take some water.
Do I need water? Yeah, thank you guys. Did I talk too fast on that last one? Do I need to slow down? Okay. It's so funny, you can hear myself gulping. This one, no, I don't. But you printed out the sheets we need, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Nope, it's coming up. Let's see. Okay, earlier in the course we talked about, let's see how I'm going to start this up because I need to transition. Sometimes during an emergency, no matter what you do to be able to prepare, nothing works. I mean, you have to relocate, you have to leave. And it's a little bit too loud, Kyle. Do you hear the echo? Okay. Test 1, 2. Is that good? Okay, sounds good. Sometimes during an emergency, you've done everything you could. I mean, there's just nothing else you can do, and you just got to leave. It's dangerous to stay there. Maybe there's riots going on. Maybe your house is falling apart. You don't know. I mean, it could be a whole bunch of 1,000 different reasons for why you need to take off. Now, earlier in the course, we talked about escapes and evacuations. What's the big difference between an escape and evacuation? Let me just remind you. An escape is something where you're going to get out quickly. It's an active shooter. Your house is on fire. You're not going to take time to go, oh, we better grab our 72-hour kits and get a little bit of food and pack the car. No, you're getting out of there. Okay, your life is in danger. You might have a little kit next to your bed with clothes. You might have some shoes next to your bed. Grab them, run out. Whatever you need to just to escape the situation. Then there's evacuation, where typically you got to be ready in 5 minutes or less. That's what we're teaching you, right? If you have more time, great. Grab some extra things that you don't want to lose in a fire, or lose if you're leaving for a long period of time where people are going to take it or whatever else. Maybe something that grandma gave you or grandpa gave you that you don't want to have destroyed. You can bring that as well. But in evacuation, you have a few minutes to grab what you need to and then get out. You're either going to walk, you're going to drive, or whatever it is to get out of the situation that's bad, right? To a better situation. Now, relocation is a different story, and I'm going to have one of you guys read this. Who has a good booming voice who can read for us? Actually, right there. Go ahead.
Leaving a bad or potentially bad situation with as many of your possessions as possible and moving them to another permanent but safer location.
Thank you. So the difference between an escape, an evacuation, and a relocation is you're taking very, very little, if anything, in an escape. You're taking a little bit more during an evacuation. But a relocation is like you're moving. You're never coming back to this house. So if that were the case, and you have time, right? You have a week, you have 2 weeks, whatever it's going to take to relocate, you got to answer 3 different questions. First of all, where are you going? Number 2, what are you going to bring with you? And number 3, how are you going to get there? That's it. So let's talk about the first one. Where are you going? I'm just going to read this because I can't remember what I put there. Let's talk about the first one. Where are you going? Even if you own a motorhome, or a large trailer, okay, even if you have a motorhome or a large trailer or whatever else, sometimes you just got to move to somebody else's place, right? It could be a friend, it could be a relative, it can be a vacation home. Let's see, practice. You know something? I don't want to read this. I want to talk about it. Okay, so I'm going to just talk. Let's see what we're talking about there. Okay, primary location. So even if you have your own motorhome or a trailer or anything that you can comfortably live in, usually you're not going to go park it in I shouldn't say Walmart. Yeah, big box store. Thank you. Even if you have a motorhome or a big trailer and you can live in it for a long period of time, you're going to want to take that somewhere, right? You're going to want to live somewhere. And if you can bring as much stuff from your house as possible and relocate it to a friend's house, a relative's house, or maybe even in the middle of the mountains with a whole bunch of tents and make your own compound or who knows what, right? Or you have a vacation home. Whatever it is, you're going to need to plan that out. Now, as part of that plan, we talked about the PACE method of communication, right? You have your primary, you have your alternative, you have your, I'm just going blank on words. You have your primary, your alternative, your contingent, and your emergency locations. Okay, I shouldn't say locations. Let me just go back. So when we talk about communication, we talk about the PACE method, where you have 4 different options if things get worse and worse and worse. Well, you can use that in locations as well. So in this case right here, you might know exactly where you're going. You don't need 4 options. You might need just one option, your primary location. But if your primary location is gone, you might want to go to an alternative location or a contingent location or an emergency location. Now, I gave a couple examples here of the ones that I picked for myself. And the funny thing is, I actually talked to some of these people and said, by the way, if things get really bad, I'd like to move to your house. Are you okay with that? And I'd like to bring a bunch of my stuff. Okay? And they're like, totally, because you're totally prepared, Marcel, and we get to use your stuff, right? So they're totally okay with that, right? But what I have here is, for example, a few miles away, I would go to my father-in-law's house. That would be my first place, right? Another place I would go is to my sister-in-law's, which is about 45 minutes away, and she would be able to house us as well and take care of my family. A third one is a friend of mine who lives further away, who we're just really good friends. He would take me in a heartbeat. My fourth emergency location, if I can't find any of the other ones and nothing else is working, I have a location already picked out where it's kind of like my bug out location. I've got these 3 huge tents, and I could bring anything and everything I wanted to be able to put in those tents and be able to live out there for a long period of time if I needed to, with all the supplies I have and everything else. And so that would be my PACE plan. Now, you each will have your own PACE plan, and I'm going to suggest that those of you watching the video right now, pause the video and come up with, where would you go? Where would you end up? And again, you might want to call the people and let them know, hey, this is what I'm thinking, just make sure, because they might say, not a chance, right? Or they might say, cool, yeah, totally, and can we use you as a backup as well during emergencies? You never know what's going to happen, but you want to communicate that ahead of time. So go ahead and stop the video if you need to, figure out where you're going to go, write it down, and let's get to the next part of the video. Okay, the next part of the video usually takes you walking around the house, okay? Figuring out exactly what you want. Because there's some things that if you needed to move out, you had a week, 2 weeks, whatever, you can put it in trailers or whatever you're going to be able to do to move it. There's things that you're definitely going to take. I've got mine. I'm going to ask you guys, what are the things that you would definitely want to move out with you if you had to move out and you're never coming back to your house again? Let's go ahead and have you guys tell me. Go ahead.
Well, if I still had electricity, I would take my sewing machines. I need to be able to sew, and I can help
That's a big
other
thing.
people.
That's a big thing. Seriously, it's good for emergencies, hobbies, everything. Yeah. What else? What
Or
else would you guys
treadle
take?
machine without power.
I'm gonna have you say that again because I'm gonna go a little bit faster so we're not in breaks and stuff like that. So go ahead and stay off to the side.
You
And
could also have a treadle machine ready to bring that doesn't require electricity.
there you are. Okay, stay off to the side. Then I'm just gonna start off that part of again. So there's a lot of things you can bring, and personally, I already know a lot of things. So there's a lot of things you can bring with you, and personally, I know the things that I would bring. I would bring my food storage. I mean, I've taken a lot of time and money to be able to put that together, right? I would take every bit of food that I could because I want to have it for wherever I'm going to go to, right? There's journals and everything else I would bring that I'd never want lost. I mean, I've got boxes of stuff that I just wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I mean, it just means a lot to me personally, but it just goes on and on and on. There's a bunch of things I would bring, you know, all my guns, my ammo, all this stuff, all the different things that I have that are super important for me to bring. I might not bring my big grand piano, right? I'm probably not going to bring that. Some of you might. Maybe that's that important and you have the means to transport it. But what kind of things would you guys bring just out of curiosity? Let's go right here.
I would bring my sewing machines because I can sew clothes, I can mend clothes, I can mend tents. I can do a lot of things with sewing machines.
Absolutely, and it's a fun hobby, right? It gets your mind off of bad times and gets you in a happy place, right? Let's go maybe a couple more. What else would you guys bring? Let's go right here.
I would say water
Yeah, totally.
and your hygiene supplies.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I've got a bunch of hygiene supplies and I've got extra stuff I saved up, soap and everything else. Yeah, bring that. That would be awesome, right? All my filters, water filters, all the stuff that I've saved up to be able to clean water. That's super important. Let's go another one back here.
Shelter and temperature control would be very important.
Super important, yeah. All your camping stuff, right? You'd want to bring along. Okay, go ahead.
Depending on the type of emergency, it may or may not be important, but we've got our books with our important papers like our documents, passports, and birth certificates and stuff like that we'd bring.
Yeah, a whole bunch of files, stuff you don't want to lose, right? Go ahead.
I would suggest that we each bring our trades special items. Like if you're a plumber, bring your plumber tools
Yeah.
and that kind of a thing.
Absolutely, it's such a good idea, and that's something I actually didn't put on my list that I should have, and because that I would bring probably my big tool chest with all my tools, and so thank you for actually bringing that up for me. That was helpful for me. Anything else that you guys would bring up? These are really good ideas, by the way. You guys are doing awesome. So before we get to the next video, I'm going to have you pause the video, go ahead and walk around your house, figure out the things that you would definitely let's do that again. So before we get to the next video, I want you to use this list and go ahead and pause the video and figure out what you're going to bring with you, what you would want to bring with you. Walk around the house, make a big list, and prioritize that list so you know exactly what you're going to bring first, second, third, fourth, in case you can't bring everything. Okay, let me do that one more time. Sorry. Go ahead.
Can you suggest where they should put the list?
Yeah, I could. That's a good
I
idea.
have it on the back of my pantry door, but somewhere they will remember where it is.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I can bring that up. Okay, awesome. So before we get to the next part of the video, I'm going to have you pause and walk around your house. Make a list of all the things that you would want to bring with you if you had to relocate to somewhere else. And especially when you know where you're going to be going to. Maybe they don't have a ton of room there. Maybe they have plenty of room, right? Figure out the stuff you're going to bring, and if you need to, prioritize it so you know what's the most important all the way to the least. So you start from the most important if you have to relocate, and laminate that list if you need to. Put it on the back of a closet door somewhere where you're going to be able to remember where it's at in case you ever do need to move. So the last part is, how are you going to get there? Okay, this is a two-part question because first of all, what type of vehicle are you going to use to get there? Say nothing's drivable, right? Do you have a trailer that you can pull? Do you have animals? What are you going to do to be able to move all the stuff there? And how far away is it? And then the second part is it safe to even get there? Do you have one pathway to get there, or two or three different ways to get there? How are you going to get there? So be really clear on this, because if you get clear now, it's easier during an emergency to not have to figure it out then. You know exactly how to move and how to move quickly. Let's see. So I'm going to encourage you right now before we end this video to go ahead and figure out those plans, and then I'll see you on the next. What is the next video? I think that was the last video to the conclusion.
Are you doing solar tonight?
Yeah, I am, but no, I'm actually, this is something else. I got to remember what this is. Okay, and then so I'm going to encourage you right now to be able to get all that stuff done, get your plans done for relocating, and we're wrapping up this section. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and end this video, and I'll see you on the next video. Okay, we're done with that. Whew. Okay, so the next one, I think we're going to get to the stuff you guys came here tonight for.
It's all what we came here for.
And let's go to emergency lighting first, and then we'll go to power as well. So emergency lighting. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull everything up here. I'll just do it all at one time. If some people can help me, we just got to get everything up here. That's over here. Yeah, go ahead and pass those out.
Take this very far by
Yeah,
hand.
let's put that right up here.
You're going to have to help me with this one.
All right.
Do we want to sit?
Yeah, turn it this way towards. Perfect.
Marcella,
Yeah.
it's time sensitive. I need to tell you something.
What is it?
Burning used motor oil puts lead into the air. Breathing it is a neurotoxin, and your body won't get rid of it.
Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
You're awesome. Thanks. Okay, so let's go ahead.
Next to it.
I think I thrive off of questions. It makes it easier for me to teach anything I want to. And then it's as long as it's relevant to the subject I'm talking about, right? So we're going to start out with lighting. Oh, do you have a worksheet, or does everybody have a worksheet? Okay, I need one for myself, by the way. Let me grab one so I can point to it. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I forgot all about that. I needed one too. Okay, obviously there's a lot of dumb. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, great start. Great way to start, right? Okay, emergency lighting. Now, obviously, you got to start with some dad jokes, right? And I'll give you one. And you guys probably have heard this one before, right? How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Only one.
Only one, but the light bulb has to really be willing to change, right? Okay. So when it comes to lighting, the first thing you need to do is look around your house and get a little bit more efficient. If you're burning some bulbs that are really energy suckers, go to something that's less of an energy sucker, maybe LED or whatever else, so that during an emergency, if you do have to turn on the lights and say the power is going on, going off, going on, or it's just really spotty or whatever else, that you have the most efficient lighting that you can comfortably have in your home, if that makes sense. Now, there's a lot of things you can do for lighting, and we can go to candles, to oil lamps, to oil torches. Make sure that if you're burning anything, including the oil we talked about earlier, I don't think that part is actually, that's later on. It's in a different video after this, I think. Bummer. Okay, so obviously there's candles. Obviously, when it comes to lighting, you can use. Let me try it again. Obviously, when it comes to lighting, you can use a whole bunch of different things. You can use candles, oil lamps. You can use oil torches. Make sure if you're burning anything, do it outside so that the fumes and everything don't get you sick inside. And if you're going to be doing a fire outside or inside, remember to be well ventilated. But that's a great way to use. But that's also a good way to get. But that's also a great way to get light into your house or around your house during an emergency. Flashlights and headlamps is probably the most popular when it comes to emergency situations. So I recommend that everybody have a good headlamp, get some good flashlights. You have a whole bunch of different types of flashlights, everything from flashlights that take batteries, right, that you can use during an emergency, to ones that are fed by solar, or you can use a USB to charge a battery that's inside. This is an example of one. This is like a little light right here. Here's one that you can plug in and use during an emergency. It's a light, but it's also plugged in at the same time. I think I'm going to talk about this later, actually. Let me just see if I have a slide on that. I think I do. Actually, how did I do that? How did I get out of it? One sec. Slideshow. Let me just see if I do. Traditional. There, I do have backup lighting. Okay, that's right. Okay. So flashlights and headlamps are probably the most popular of all of them. Everybody should have a headlamp. Everybody should have a flashlight. There's a whole bunch of different types out there. You can get ones that are run by solar, like this one right here. That has a little solar thing on it. You can actually charge it by solar. You can put a USB in there. It has a battery inside. You can switch out the battery, put in a new one. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do during an emergency to get this going. You can have traditional flashlights and headlamps that have normal batteries in them. You can have rechargeable batteries. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but make sure you get yourself a good flashlight or a few good flashlights, small ones, big ones, it doesn't matter, get something. And headlamps are super important so that you can be working on things and using your hands without having to hold the light. Next is going to be traditional, what does that say? Traditional battery or solar lanterns. Next is going to be lanterns in general. You can either use gas lanterns, or you can use battery lanterns or solar lanterns. There's a bunch of options in the market. Here's one right here where you can turn this on and be able to have quite a bit of light. I mean, that's pretty bright in a dark room, and it has a little solar panel on top. You have a little puck right here that you can actually use as a flashlight if you need to, or expand it and get some light. Here's another little lantern. Here's another one back here. There's a bunch of options when it comes to lanterns that you can hang in a room, and it can light quite a bit of that room with that lantern. Next is going to be natural light, where you can use sky tunnels and skylights and roof windows. So many different options to be able to bring light into your house during, bad times where you don't have the lights where you can turn on in your house. And this is a fun one as well, and it's backup lighting. We have this in our house, and I'll show you a few of these because they're just fun. This right here is one of my favorite. We just plug this into a wall, and you'll see, I don't know if you can zoom in on this right there, but you have a little plug. You see that? And you plug it in the wall, and it's always ready for an emergency. And you're able to just pull it out, and then you got yourself a flashlight. Okay, and two different types of flashlights. Here's one in the front, one in the back. You have solar on the back if you ever do need to charge it. It has a little battery, so if you ever, it has a little magnet. Sorry, not battery. It has a little bit. It has a little magnet, so if you ever do need to connect it to something and be able to work on things, you can pretty easily with the magnet. And there's other ones as well, where this one is one I use with my kids. This is a little night light. When you walk past it, it's always charging, but it has a battery inside. And if we do need to in an emergency, we can grab it. We got ourselves a flashlight pretty easily, or a kind of a area light as well. And here's another one that we have in our front room, where if the power goes out and the light switch is on, these little lights will just turn on. They have a battery in them. And I'll just show you real quick just by touching it. You see that? It's pretty fun. But these little lights will turn on, and it'll light up our house during an emergency when it detects that the emergency got cut off from the city. Say again? Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, awesome. Okay. Let's see what I have. Okay. That's it. Well, we're almost done. Okay. Then remember, then again, I'm going to encourage you during emergencies to always be creative. There might be no electricity, no battery, no flashlights, everything is broken. And you got to figure out, how are we going to get light into the, and let me try this again. So the other thing I'm always going to recommend to you to be creative during an emergency. Figure out ways to bring light into the house if you have no other way of doing it. You can put little bottles in the roof like some people do in third world countries to be able to use that water from the light from the roof to come into the house in a dark house or shed or whatever you're building to be able to survive during an emergency. You can use mirrors to reflect light into the house and make things brighter during the dark, or you can use mirrors or reflective coatings to be able to push light into a house. If it's dark in your house during the daytime or during a cloudy day or whatever, you can bring more light into that house anytime you need to. Just think outside the box. So for the lighting section, I'm going to encourage you at this point to decide on what type of lighting do you need or want. What are you going to do inside your house to make things more efficient? What type of lighting do you want? What type of lighting do you want for emergencies, whether it's a flashlight, a headlamp, or whatever else? Write that down right now and make sure you put that in place. Okay, so we're done with that, and now we're going to get to the electric one. Okay, was that okay? Wasn't too fast or too? All right.
You want a new suggestion on lighting?
What's that?
For outdoors, you'll not have enough power to put a beam of light so far you see the mountains. So
Yeah.
Thermal imaging running on just a little teeny battery that'll last 18 hours.
That's awesome.
It will see that horizon. It'll see everything. It'll run a trail at night, and no one will be able to spot you by seeing your light.
That's smart. Thank you for bringing that up.
One reason to move at night is if you want no one to be spotting you. If you're going to do that, you got one.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, this one, if you guys can ask me questions going into this one, let's talk a little bit about it. This is where we're going to get into power quite a bit. And okay, in this video, we're going to talk about alternative power. Now, this video, I really debated, should I go deep into power? Should I keep it very surface level? Should I keep it very simple? I was trying to figure out, how do I keep it simple enough but deep enough that you can watch this video and watch it over and over until you get the information you need. So I'm actually going to get into quite a few things. I'm going to get a little bit into what electricity is, some of the terms you should know, a little bit more deep into electricity, so that when it comes to setting up your own systems, right? Your own, you know something? I apologize. Did we miss something? No, hold on a sec. I just got it. Oh, I am so sorry. There's a whole section before that I got to get to before I talk about this. Okay, and this is where you guys are going to use your, did you guys see the dad jokes? Okay. Oh, good. All right, good. Okay, so I'm going to actually talk about a bunch of things before we get to what I was about to talk about. I forgot there's a section before that, but you're going to use your little sheets that I gave you in just a minute. Okay, does everybody have a pen? Okay, awesome. And okay, now we're getting into alternative power, and this is a fun one, but let's see. Okay, now we're getting into alternative power, but before we get into it, we obviously have to do some dad jokes, right? Okay, so I've got some fun ones for you. First of all, what's the best tool to use to install an electrical plug with? A socket wrench. Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. Drum roll. Okay, awesome. Where do electrical plugs go shopping? Outlet stores. Of course. And then right before I came up here, Beth gave me a few more, so I haven't been able to read through all of these right here. But why did the tree install solar panels? It wanted to be a power plant. Okay, yeah, good one, huh? Let's see, what's this one? Why did the power outage go to the party? It heard there would be light refreshments. And I think she gave me two more. Let's see what these are. Why did the power outage quit its job? It wanted to try out for America's Got No Power. Okay, that one needs a little bit of work. Okay, this one's a good one. So a solar panel is talking to a wind turbine, and the solar panel says, "So what do you think about all that renewable energy?" And the turbine says, "I'm a big fan." Okay, that was a really good one. I like that one a lot. Okay, so as part of this whole power section, we're going to go a little bit deep into what you guys need and what you want, right? Now, I've given you all sheets, and for those of you watching the video out there, you need to download the sheet inside the course because it's a worksheet you need to go through to be able to do this section right. So the things you need to do right now is you need to go to your sheet and write down the things you absolutely need power for during an emergency. Absolutely need power for during an emergency. Put them on each single line. If you need to pause the video and write them down and start it up again, that's fine. But write them down. I'll give you some examples of things that I put on my list. My refrigerator. My big box freezer. Okay? Some of you have CPAPs. Okay, that you might need, or some type of medical device that you need to be able to run, right? There's a whole bunch of different things. So let's just take a few minutes right now and go ahead and write those down, and then I'll ask you, a few of you, to share what you wrote down. Those of you at home watching, write down the things that you absolutely need power for during an emergency. Make a list along with us, because I'm going to take you through an exercise that's going to help you figure out how to, like, all the type of power you need for an emergency and what type of devices you should get. So go ahead and do that if you're watching online right now. These are things not necessarily you want, but things you have to have. Got that? Okay. There could be a couple lights in your house that you want to plug in. Maybe there's one or two lights, one or two rooms that you want to plug in, right? You might need to run a fan because it gets too hot. Who knows? So there might be things that you have to have. And then when you get done with this, write down 4 or 5 of them if you get to 4 or 5, and then we'll just go ahead and get to the next section. Okay, you guys need more time or are you good? All right. Okay, let's go ahead and ask you some of the things that you put down to help those people who are watching the video right now. What are some of the things that you guys put down that are have-to-haves? Let's go ahead and start up here in the front. Would you mind sharing a few? Let's get the microphone.
Besides the fridge and refrigerator, I wrote down induction burner.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it does take a lot more energy than maybe sometimes you have, right? But that could be a good one. I would recommend, I'm going to put this out there, that if you do need to cook things, go back to the food section that we did. And we talked a little bit about the solar ovens and other ways that you can be cooking with retained heat and everything else, so that you don't have to use up precious power if you don't have the big battery systems, right? But thank you for sharing that. Okay, what else? Let's get a couple more. What else did you guys put down? Anything besides fridge and CPAPs and all that?
I put down a heater because I'm cold.
Okay. And maybe you shoot for a heating blanket, because that's going to probably be more efficient than a heater, right? Okay, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I put down a radio because I need to get information from the outside world of
my
what's
goodness.
happening.
That is awesome. You know what I put down for mine is communication devices, cell phones, and stuff like that. So I have my ham radios, I have my communication devices, my computer, my cell phone, stuff that I can use if I can connect to my satellite internet and be able to do things and communicate with people. That's important to me. So that was on my have-to-haves. Go ahead.
If we're in a grid down, security is important. So my cameras.
That is amazing. You know, I didn't even consider that, like running all my cameras to be able to make sure that I can see what's going on around my house. So thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead.
Definitely a microwave.
Microwave. Definitely going to take every bit of power in 2 seconds. But if you can do popcorn in it, then that's important, right? We've got to have our popcorn. That's really funny. Okay, so let's go to the next list, where if you look down just a tiny bit, you're going to see that there are, actually, before we do that, so the next thing I'm going to have you guys do is find out how many hours are you going to be running each one of those, and I'm going to have you put those hours next to it. Is it 2 hours, 4 hours? Is it 24 hours? Like for refrigerators and freezers, 24 hours for me. I'm going to be running those all the time. Does that make sense? And so put down those hours in the little space right next to it, how many hours you need that for, and get that done. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video and finish that up. Those of you online, go ahead and write that down next to it, how many hours a day that you're going to be using these items for.
And because the refrigerators and freezers cycle on and off during the day, you can use some average numbers. A refrigerator uses about 1,500 watt hours in a day.
Yep.
And a freezer is about the same, so you don't have to do the calculation. Just
yeah, and I'm going to bring up I'll bring up a slide later on to show people some of the numbers, and we'll do those calculations later on. But you're bringing up a really good point. Later on at home, we're going to have everybody actually go through and figure out exactly the power they need for all their appliances, because everybody's appliance is different.
There's a device that sells for about $20 called Kilowatt. There's other brands. It's a device you plug into the wall. It has a liquid crystal display of numbers that will show. You can plug in your refrigerator or whatever you're testing with it to see what power it consumes, and it'll say your daily watts, your peak amps,
That's great.
peak watts, the percentage of time that it's on, and all of that, and then unplug it and plug it in somewhere else and plug something else into it.
Absolutely. Good idea. If you want to get exact on your watts, that's a really good idea. If you want to just look at the back of your device, whatever you're powering, it'll also tell you what that is. And you can use a ballpark figure to be able to figure out the power. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because usually I want a little bit more power than I actually calculate, because that's always a little bit smart, right, to have during an emergency. So the next question I'm going to have you do is, now what are the things you want? What are your nice to haves? Put that in the list below, where you're going to write it right there, okay? You're going to write it right here, all your nice to haves, things that you would want during emergency running. Because we're going to take the have to haves, we're going to add some of the nice to haves, and we're going to find out how much power you need to run so we can figure out what type of power unit you need to be able to run those things. Does that make sense? So take some time right now, pause the video if you need to, and write down your want to haves, your nice to haves. Kyle, is my voice breaking up on the video? Do you have the headset on? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, do you guys need a few more minutes? Okay, I'll ask about 3 or 4 of you guys to share the things that you put down as you want to have. I already know yours. So. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about your nice to haves, your want to haves, and see what you put on your list. Let's go ahead and start with you because I know you put down sewing machine. Did I? Am I right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, you got your sewing machine.
It was third, though.
Really? I'm surprised that's not on your have to haves.
Oh, but
Oh,
I don't
now you're gonna
have
switch
to
it.
have it. No, I'm
Okay.
not. No.
Okay, go ahead.
A blow dryer. Because
Okay.
we lost power, and I needed a blow dryer, and he had a little thing that he had.
So you're talking about a hair blow dryer?
Yeah.
Okay. It takes a ton of energy. But if you need
I
your
only
blow-
need it for a little bit.
Okay.
I would need a fan if I get too hot.
And a fan. Awesome. Good one. Okay, let's get a couple more. What are some of the nice to haves?
I would say an electric grain mill.
Oh
for grinding
yeah,
wheat.
totally. What a good one. That is awesome. Especially if anyone has ever grinded? What's the word? Grind or grounded? Ground? If you've ever ground it by hand, you use up more energy than you actually can consume with that, with that wheat. And so it's hard. I like to connect it to some type of generator or, some type of low power generator that I have at home that I can turn things with, or just use an electric one, right? And have enough power to be able to run it for a few minutes, and all of a sudden you got a ton of wheat that you can use for cooking. So sweet.
Washing machine, but it would depend on water coming into your house.
Yeah, exactly. So washing machine would be a
And
good
I think
one.
a dryer, if you're electric dryer, you probably
That's
wouldn't
a
have.
ton of energy right there. Yeah. Let's go ahead right here.
Entertainment, if you have kids, because it's a stressful situation and it's good for them to have something that's comforting to them. And keep
Absolutely.
them busy too.
And that's music, that's, movies, that's so many different things that you can be able to use during an emergency with that power, right? Okay, 1 or 2 more, or are you guys good? Was that a pretty good list? So you guys have your want to haves, right? Now I'm gonna have you figure out how many hours in a 24-hour period, how many hours will you be running those things? Go ahead and write that down next to it. If those online need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it and go ahead and do that. Hi. In a 24-hour period, how many hours would you need to run those? Can you make... Thank you. I'll just go ahead and change that right now. Can't see, is that it? It's funny because I grew up with a Brazilian mom and a Greek dad, and we said all these words that I thought I was speaking perfect English. And I didn't know I was speaking all the wrong things for all these years until I got married. And my wife's like, why do you say that? And I'm like, because that's the right way to say it. No, it isn't. And she started correcting me on all these things. And I noticed I say is a lot when I mean are. You know, like, you know, is with a plural, right? And a whole bunch of things, but it's kind of fun. I'm aware of it. I just haven't been able to change it. So it's kind of crazy. Okay. Now, this goes without saying, but any of the items in your house that you could use, is there anything you can do to make it require less power? Is there a new refrigerator you can get that has Energy Star? Are there things that you can do? See, I just did it right there. Did you catch that? Okay. Are there things that you can do to be able to have more efficient items so that you're not pulling a ton of energy during an emergency? You wanted to say something, or can you use the microphone?
That's what I'm big into, is using less power to deal with power outages. For example, freeze protection. You might have canned foods in jars, and if they freeze, they break. Someone else might want to provide heat so that they don't go below freezing. But I use thermal mass. Just put all your food together, surround it with all your water storage, and throw some insulation over it. Could be your blankets, which is storage too. Could be your clothing, which is storage too. And it would have to be sub-freezing for the longest time. It would have to freeze that water that's surrounding it first before it could even get to your canned foods. In your truck or your vehicle, if you're going camping or something, get one of those 40-quart ice chests.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you. So let's go ahead and, because let's keep it to the the items that we would be able to, the things that we need to plug in. Does that make sense? So that's because that's what we're focusing on today. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but thank you for bringing that stuff up. The point is, if you guys can figure out different items in your house that you can purchase ahead of time that maybe don't require as much energy, so that when you're using them during an emergency, it's not sucking every bit of power you have from your batteries, that would be awesome, or from your generator or whatever you're going to use. Okay, different ways of supplying power during an emergency. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the different ways that you can get energy during an emergency. First of all, obviously, there's generators. There's multi-fuel, there's gasoline, there's propane, there's diesel, there's biodiesel, there's biogas, there's hydrogen. Okay, there's so many different ways of running a generator. Now, generators aren't my favorite way of doing it. Why is that? Noisy, right? A lot of times you do it outside, right? During the nighttime, people can steal it, right? They know you have power when they don't. You have heat, you have cooking, all this stuff when they don't. When people get desperate, okay, they do desperate things. So it's not my favorite way of doing things. Then there's the outside whole house units, right? Like the Generacs and everything else, where you can do multi-fuel, you can do propane, you can do natural gas, you can do diesel, you can do hydrogen fuel cells. I mean, they're coming out with those for homes right now. Then there's hydroelectric generators. When we were in Costa Rica at the Rancho Margot, the place my wife and I went to, they actually had a hydroelectric generator that was running the power for the whole place. They just put it in the stream there, in the little river there, and it was just constantly just going, and all the lights were on because of that. Now you take that, you set it up with a battery unit, you save the power, you got it anytime you need to, you got extra power anytime you need to. Then there's wind turbines, and there's a bunch of them coming out that are good for homes. You can put on a house, there's vertical units, there's a bunch of different ones to be able to generate power from the wind. And obviously there's kinetic devices, okay? I like the big hamster wheel, I had to put it in there because I thought that was hilarious. The problem with kinetic devices are what? What's the problem with them? Yeah, it takes energy to produce energy, right? And so sometimes it's not the most efficient way to do it, but it's just an option. And then there's automobiles. If you have a automobile that still does have gasoline or using biodiesel or whatever else, you can plug stuff in there and you can charge it anytime you need to, as long as you're not killing the battery, right? And you can't start up the car after that. And there's also I didn't know if I was going to talk about that. I'll talk about it later. That's right. Okay. Then there's also bidirectional electric vehicles. You're seeing a lot more of these come out, like the Ford Lightning and a bunch of others, where you can actually plug the battery from the car, the big EV battery that has a ton of power, into the house, and you can be running the house, and vice versa, right? You can charge the car and then run the house if you need to. So that's also an option that people are using. My favorite option for emergencies is solar. If you can use the sun, okay, and then you can store that energy into batteries and then be able to use that at nighttime, it's just the most efficient way to do it, okay? And you can have energy, endless energy for decades if you do it right. If you're going to be getting electronics and you're going to be saving that type of stuff, I recommend that you look into Faraday protection. I recommend that you look into Faraday protection, and there's a lot of ways you can do that as well. Are you guys familiar with Faraday cages, Tesla? Do I have to explain that to anyone? Okay, you guys understand it. I'll give you some examples of what I do. Now, with my stuff, I have my electronics in little Faraday pouches, and there's a bunch of them online. If you look at the ones online, there's a bunch of them on Amazon. They're just these Mylar pouches. My advice to you is run away from those, okay? They call them EMP. They have all these amazing reviews and everything else, but if you test them, they're not really good for EMPs, okay? It can get right through it. Typically for an EMP, I think it's like, 80 to 100 decibels that you need to protect against, or higher than that. And bags like this, which have a copper sheeting, has 3 layers of protection. Stuff like this can get up to about 100 decibels, and you can protect whatever electronics are inside there. You'll notice I have different types here. Like here's another one I use for my communication devices. This right here, open it up, and it has a Faraday bag inside it that I have to flip open, and then I can get to all my communication devices. I've got a battery in here as well, so a smaller one. If I need power, I can pull this out, and you can see this little, Kyle, can you see it from there? Okay, you got my little power unit in here, a little smaller one. Now I'm making a mess, so I'll have to clean this up later. But all this is protected as my backup communication and power devices. If you don't have the money for these, because they get really pricey, I mean hundreds and hundreds of dollars for something like that, just that little duffel bag is super expensive. If you don't have the money for that, you can create your own Faraday cage, right? You can get yourself a trash can. Here's a stainless steel trash can I picked up from Home Depot. The only thing I don't like about this is this lid right here has a lip. If I were showing you guys how to do this, I would take this lip and I would cut it and I would bend it down. Okay, so it gets closer to the edge. Then what I would do with this, you can do a big trash can if you need to. What I would do with this is I'd get some type of liner on the inside. You can use anything. You can use a shirt. You can use blankets. You can use cardboard. Anything. So whatever electronics you're going to put inside here that you don't want damaged by an EMP or some solar storm or whatever else is not going to be able to touch the metal. So you're creating some type of insulation in there. Does that make sense? And then when you go to close this thing, you could put aluminum foil around here. You're trying to make a tight lid. When you go to close this thing, if you do put a bunch of foil in here and smash it down, that's great. Like I said, I would cut this and make it flatter. And then the big key is make sure you get yourself some foil tape. This thing isn't going to work very well unless it's completely sealed. And if you take this and you pull this down and you seal it all the way and make sure there's no tears in it and it's perfectly sealed, this thing is a pretty good Faraday cage. I would say it's probably close to an 80 decibel or something like that. And so if you don't have the means to get a metal trash can, you can always go for aluminum foil, and it's not going to work very great. So if you're going to do aluminum foil, get the thick aluminum foil. And what I would recommend is put your stuff inside the aluminum foil. Use some of that tape I was talking about if you need to seal it a little bit more. But I would do a thick layer, put an insulation, do another thick layer, put an insulation. I would do that 5 to 7 times, probably 7 times, to be able to make sure that it's completely sealed and it's completely protected closer to that 80 decibel level. And I would say probably 7 layers would probably be close, is my guess. I'd have to test it out. But when you're doing that, make sure when you wrap it, there are no holes. There's no holes in there. And you have so many wrappings, so many levels, so many layers that hopefully nothing is getting through anywhere else. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of ways to do it. Let's go for 2 comments right there.
The very best of them has a metal to metal seal where there's no gap at all. The aluminum tape, it's actually has an adhesive layer, which is an insulation.
Yeah.
Electrical insulation. You won't get electrical current going through it. It's not continuous metal all around.
Yeah,
The very best of them is the All-American brand pressure canner for pressure canning your canned food.
Yep.
You should have that anyway. And since you're not always pressure canning, when it's clean and empty, that's where you put your electronics.
That's a great suggestion.
It's got the best electromagnetic pulse seal of anything.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was actually going to pop in here to show you guys. I have one of the All-Americans. The only problem is are some holes at the top, just to make sure that nothing's getting through those as well. But it is metal to metal. But this still isn't a bad option, you guys. Okay, it works. If you look at the testing that's been done online, it doesn't work without that tape. But you put on the tape, it works. Okay, it creates that level of protection you need to. Now you do want metal to metal. That's why if you could create some type of cushion inside and push it down, that's even better.
I just had a question. The measurements you're talking about, it's decibels?
Decibels.
So sound?
Power,
getting
decibels.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so it's the E1, E2, and E3 waves that you're trying to protect your stuff against. And so, but they're measured in decibels.
Question here. What about a Saratoga jack? So like one of those cooker things where it's stainless steel. Would that make
I don't think it's going to work. So there's too much plastic in it. I don't think it's a good seal. So I would do a trash can before I did any of those.
Any truth to microwaves being good Faraday cages?
I've tested them. It didn't work. So maybe some do, but the ones I tested didn't work. Not to the level you would need for an EMP. Does that make sense? Okay. What else? I saw one more hand up here.
Yeah, my question.
Oh, the same question.
Well, I guess how are you doing the test? That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah. So I don't have all the great equipment, but just putting in a cell phone and calling it is a good way to see if the signal goes through. And sometimes the closer you get to a device, the more it goes on. Does that make sense? So sometimes you're a few feet away and it works, and sometimes you get closer and it does, or it gets further away, it doesn't work. You get closer, it calls, right? You can hear it. So the thing about it is you don't want anything going on. You want to make sure it's not working at all. But if you do the research online, there's a bunch of people who've done the research, and you find out what works and what doesn't work. This is a cheap way to do it. And these bags right here that I use, the reason I use them and I pay a lot of money is because they do work. They're just a really, really good bags with a triple layer of protection, folded over. It works. Okay, and it's not metal on metal. It's just folded over enough times that it doesn't allow anything to go through. Does that make sense? So awesome. Okay. The other thing I would recommend is some type of surge protection for your home as well. If I can find there it is. That if you can do some type of surge protection for your house as well during an EMP to not fry all your circuitry in your house, I would recommend looking into that as well. And you can have different surge protector with an EMP protector right after it. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but I would protect your cars, your homes, and everything else. So let's see. So as part of this video, before we end and get to the next video, I'm going to ask you what type of energy or what type of power will you guys use for your emergencies? Do you want generators? Do you want battery? What are you going to use? Everybody's situation is different, so don't feel like you have to give me the perfect answer. But what are you going to use for your emergencies? Let's go ahead and get maybe two answers, two people to answer.
Definitely a generator and solar.
Okay, so actual power generator. It's not bad to have. I mean, especially depending on the neighborhood you're in and everything else, it might be a perfect thing for you, right? So awesome. I know with one of my buddies, he does have a lot of the stuff that you need for emergencies, but he's got a big whole house unit that connects to the natural gas from the city, but also he has a gigantic propane tank right outside his house in the middle of the city. Okay, a huge propane tank. Okay, and it can run that thing for probably a year. You know, he could probably have enough gas and everything to run his electricity and everything for probably a year is my guess. He's pretty wealthy, and he does really well, but he can afford stuff like that.
Yeah, with propane, you have to check with the city codes.
Yep,
too.
absolutely. Yeah, and he did. I mean, he's a builder, so he knows what he's doing.
I like solar, but I notice in the winter, less sunlight, snow on the panels if you're on the roof. So I have the propane to cook and heat
Mhm.
and not use the electrical.
Yeah, awesome. If you can run a generator or something with propane, that's a really good idea. So what I would recommend, if you're getting yourself a generator, say from Costco or online or wherever you're going to get it, Home Depot, who knows where, what I would recommend is just don't get a gasoline generator, get a dual fuel at least, okay? And if you're going to do that, get one that at least handles propane is my recommendation. Okay, awesome. Let's get to the next video where we're going to talk a little bit more about power. We're going to go a lot deeper, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Okay, so let's get to the next one. Awesome. In this one right here? I keep in these, I have different bags at home. Yeah, I just bought this real quick on the way here, just to show you guys. Yeah, I have all my communication devices. I mean, I can show you some of the stuff that you guys want to see some of it before I start. Okay, so in this one right here, this I have one of my power units. Now, if you look in here, I've got a whole bunch of radios, ton of different types. I've got GMRS, I've got ham radios, batteries, a whole bunch of different things in here. I've got this is my Geiger counter, just a bunch of stuff, mostly communication and power.
But you wouldn't put like batteries for flashlights and stuff like that in there.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean you could if you want to. I don't think they'd be damaged. Thing is, if an EMP did happen, the studies I've done is a lot of the big wires are going to be messed up. A lot of little, maybe even cell phones probably won't go out. You know, and in all reality, the house that I'm going to be building, the things I'm planning on creating a basement room that's EMP protected, where I can just stick anything and everything I want inside there, right? With some type of air switch or some type of good switch where if there is power that goes in, it's going to be shut off in a heartbeat. And so that's what I'm planning on doing. But in the meanwhile, the things that I would need, a little bit of power, electrical or communication devices, those are the things I put in here. My keepsakes are inside this, my electronic keepsakes. This has my family pictures, my what's it called, legalities, a whole bunch of stuff like that are inside this. Does that make sense? So great questions, by the way. Let me put this back in. I'm throwing everything out. That's really funny.
So Marcelo, in an EMP, we don't have any warning, right? It's just instant zap.
Yeah, you don't have much time, like 1 second. Yeah, so again, there's the fast wave and then there's the slower waves, but in any case, you don't want to take a chance. The fast waves, the slow waves are still pretty fast. Yeah.
You can buy them for automobiles too.
You can. So when I did the studies online with the automobiles, I found good and bad. There was an argument that somebody made, and I'm like, that makes sense, and I cannot remember the argument. I got to find that video. It was probably from 2 years ago, and he made a really good argument. Now the ones for homes seem to work. The ones for vehicles, I think there was a loophole, but I can't remember what it is. But I'd have to do some more studies, or if you find out, let me know. But I know that EMP Shield, what's the other one? DEFCON, different ones are out there claiming that it works completely for a car. So, but you can look into it, let me know. Good questions, by the way. In this next video, let's do those questions. If you guys have stuff, I'll be covering a bunch of things, but we'll have some fun with it. I know we got a resident expert here, so knows a ton about power and electricity as well. And I did work for a solar company before a long time ago. Remember when I went through that big fraud in my company? I had to figure out ways of surviving, and so it was pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. Okay. Okay, in this video, we're actually going to go pretty deep into electricity. This is not a surface level video. I debated whether I should just keep things super, super easy for most people so they don't get a little bit overwhelmed. But then I thought, wait a minute, maybe if I make it deep enough, they can go back to it and watch it over and over and over. But then I passed it by my wife and had her listen to some of the stuff I was teaching, and she got it, and she's not technical. So hopefully I made it simple enough with these complex principles. I made it simple enough that you guys are going to go, oh, I get it. Okay, and the more you know about electricity, the more you can set up the right solar arrays. You can get the right battery systems. You're not getting a battery. You're not getting a battery system that. Whoops! I lost the microphone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Test 1 2. So I can't remember what I was saying. I'm going to try to take off where I was saying. Yeah, that's right. When you figure out, when you understand all these terms and you understand what they mean, then you're not going to get a solar system where you don't have enough power with the solar array to be able to power the batteries you need, or you get the wrong batteries where you have enough solar, but now you just can't charge batteries because you did it completely wrong. So I'm going to teach you guys what to do. I'm going to teach you all that stuff, but as part of it, you're going to learn a bunch of terms. And these are the terms you're going to understand. AC/DC, not the band, okay? But AC/DC has to do with direction of the current. Then you have hertz, which has to do with the frequency. You have volts that has to do with pressure. Amps that has to do with current. Watts that has to do with power. And ohms that has to do with resistance. So that's what we're going to go through today. Now, AC/DC, alternating current, direct current. Everybody's heard stuff about this. What have you guys heard about AC/DC? What have you heard about alternating current versus direct current? What are the stories? Let's have a few. You share with me.
Well, you know, when they were first creating the grid systems, there was the competing, I don't remember who it was, but there you go. Tesla versus Edison.
That's exactly
direct versus alternating.
Yeah.
And alternating won because of reasons. But
yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What else have you guys heard? What do you know about AC and DC? Alternating current and direct current.
Well, direct current, as I understand it, the electrons flow from one place to the next place.
Yeah.
But alternating current, they're constantly just jiggling back and
forth.
Back and forth,
like right?
This.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys are getting it. That's awesome. So if you go back to the late 1800s, there was the war of the currents. It was Tesla versus Edison. And Edison was all about direct currents, right? Direct line currents. And Tesla was also all about the alternating current. He had his motor and it was getting out there and everything else. Now, what happened at the time is Tesla ended up teaming up with a guy named Westinghouse, and the rest is history. But I'll share that a little bit more about that as we talk more in this lesson. But the first thing you got to understand, if you're going to understand power, is that it starts with the atoms, right? With an atom. So if you're going to understand power, you got to understand it starts with an atom. Now, atoms have electrons, protons, and neutrons, right? Neutrons, let's just keep them out. We don't need to talk about those. But protons have a positive charge. You got it. And electrons have a negative charge. Electrons are able to move back and forth all over the place, but they also are looking for stability. So they're looking for one electron to one proton, right? They're looking for some type of balance. Now, electrons can move from atom to atom to atom to atom. That's what makes electricity possible. Let me see what I want to say here. I think I already said that. So let's see what's next. So when we get to direct currents, it's basically, so when we get to a direct current, it's going in one direction like you just mentioned. Okay, it's going from positive to negative, and it just keeps flowing. Okay, it's very efficient. It just keeps flowing until the batteries down or whatever you're using to power it, can't power it anymore, or you shut off the switch. Direct current goes one way. That's kind of like a river. A river goes one way. Where you have a lot of devices that are direct current, there are a lot of devices that are direct current, and I'm going to show you a few of them. Okay, batteries, for example. Can you grab me some batteries in the back, the battery thing in the back, if you don't mind? So batteries, for example, are direct current. They have positive, negative, car batteries, little home batteries, and everything else. These battery units right here that are for emergency situations, okay, those are direct current as well. Okay, inside this, you have a battery that basically discharges over time, going from the positive to negative, right? Did I say that right? Negative to positive, sorry. Yep. Now, when you get to alternating current, it's a little bit different because it has a positive and a negative wave, okay? And it just keeps doing that. So the electrons go one way, then they go the back way. One way, back way. So electrons are going to go towards a positive charge, and they're going to repel against a negative charge. And they just keep doing that back and forth. Does that make sense? And that's what creates the power. So a lot of people think you turn on the light switch, and all of a sudden, we have power that's going in one direction. But the truth is, it's just oscillating, okay? And I'll go a little bit further on it. Alternating currents are like the waves of the sea. They go in, they go out, positive, negative. They keep doing that over and over and over. Some examples of alternating current are a vacuum cleaner, a blender. All of these plug into a wall socket that is alternating current, or AC. Does that make sense? The reason why AC won back in the day is because George Westinghouse ended up buying up the patents from Tesla, and he ended up getting the contract for the Niagara Falls power plant, and he went to the World Fair and just made it a huge deal. And because he ended up getting more and more contracts with his patents with Tesla, AC won. But what's his name? Edison. But Edison was interesting because he ended up trying to fight it. I showed you a slide just a little bit ago. You see that slide right there, okay? What he did is he took AC, or alternating current, because he was trying to fight Tesla, and he ended up killing a guy, you know, electric chair. He ended up killing dogs, okay? He ended up taking a whole elephant, a big elephant named Topsy, and killing it in front of a bunch of people to show how bad AC was. I mean, it was competitive, super competitive. But in the end, Westinghouse, because of his clout, ended up winning. And the thing is, it was actually smart back in the day. So alternating current had to happen in the 1800s. If you're going to get power from one place to another place, I mean, they were able to get it 80 miles away, where if you were using direct current like Thomas Edison wanted to do, you'd have to have a station probably every mile away. But because it's able to go high voltage on wires for a long distance and get to what's called a transformer, which requires alternating current, then you can step down that voltage for that area. Now, fast forward to today. Direct current is actually better today. Okay, but back in the day, 1800s, direct current could not have grown our country at all. Okay, Edison was right for 100 years later. Does that make sense? Okay, right now, direct current is able to take power so much better because of the solid state devices we have today that we didn't have 150 years ago. So back in the day, AC was better for longer distances. It grew our country. Let's see where. So let's do a little test here, and I'm going to have you tell me whether it's AC or DC. Let's start with the first one. Wall socket. AC. Good job. Okay. Let's go car cigarette lighter. DC. Direct current. You got it. Okay. Car battery. DC. You guys are smart. Okay. Kitchen blender. AC. Now that's a little bit of a misnomer, okay? Because what it is it is plugged into an AC, but most of you guys don't know this. Almost every single thing you plug into the wall gets converted to DC, okay? Isn't that crazy? So your computers, for example, you know how you have that little box you put into the wall, right? Okay, what's called a, no, it's a charger, but it's a, I just went blank on the word. Can you help me? Yeah, it's a charging block, but it's but what's the actual word? It's not a receptacle. It's a rectifier. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. I was like, why can't I remember the word? It's a rectifier. So what it is it's a rectifier, and what it does is it ends up taking AC and converting it back to DC. Most of your appliances in your house, your TVs, your computers, your phones, everything has to go back to DC to run. Okay? Your TVs have a rectifier in there to convert AC back to DC. If we were starting today with all the solid state stuff that we have today, okay, and it was Tesla and Edison, guess who would win? Edison. Because DC is so much more efficient and can travel so much further with today's technology. And the dumb thing is we have to take the AC and convert it back to DC anyway for almost everything that we use in our house. But most people wouldn't know that because they're plugging it into an AC socket. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead. Let's get a microphone over here.
That's why it stinks that we have to, with these nice power supplies that we've got, you have to take your DC battery, convert it to AC, to then convert it back to DC.
Exactly. I know, it's so inefficient. And I was sitting there trying to figure out, okay, if I'm going to be building a house, do I just build a DC house, right? But there's so many appliances out there that all require AC, it kind of throws you off. You have to use them. Okay, so it just kind of stinks. But part of me wishes kind of we would start over with today's technology, but we can't. That's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in infrastructure we would have to change. And that's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay, solar panel, DC or AC? It's DC, right? Direct current, right? Comes from the sun, goes right in. So perfect, you guys got that. Now, the problem is, how do you convert DC to usable AC so you can plug in your blender, so you can plug in your vacuum cleaner, so you can plug in your sewing machine, right? Okay, how do you do that? What's the answer? You guys got it. It's called an inverter. Okay, if you look right behind me here, this big unit right here looks like a battery, but it's not. This is an inverter up here. This below here is a battery. The job of this right here, this top part, which looks heavy, but it's a lot lighter than the rest of this. This battery's heavy, heavy, heavy with all the water in it, all the liquid in it. But this right here is lighter because the job of this inverter, is simply to take DC and convert it to AC so I can plug in my blender and your sewing machine. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Same thing with this right here. This is a battery and an inverter. It has an internal inverter. You got it. It's all plugged into one so that I can run regular plugs into it. If I had my laptop or my phone, I could take the USB-C and plug it right into one of these devices right here that are still DC, not AC. So there's DC on this and there's AC. The DC is just pulling it straight out of the battery. It doesn't have to convert anything. Just super easy. You can get inverters for your cars. See this right here? Here's a 400 watt inverter where I can plug it into the DC cigarette lighter. And I can plug my computer here if I needed to or whatever with the AC plug to be able to charge it quicker than a DC could do, right? And I could be using the power from this using an inverter. That's how you do it. You guys are going to learn a ton of terms today that are going to help you be educated when it comes to energy, solar, and everything else. And one of them that we're going to be talking about, it's called Hertz. And it's kind of spelled funny. It's not, oh, ow, that hurts, right? But it's Hertz, right? Okay, awesome, thank you. Thanks for catching me on that. Go ahead and go through. No, you're fine. Good to see you guys, by the way. We didn't get to catch up. Yeah. And usually I'm able to just talk and not worry about things, but for some reason when I'm being recorded for a class, I just have a hard time talking. It's just the weirdest thing, and I can't tell all my dumb jokes and everything else. I don't know why they just don't come out, right? Okay, so I'm going to ask you this. We're going to talk about hertz a little bit, and I'm going to ask you what these things have in common. Yeah, you guys are getting it. It's a wave. And I had to throw this one in there because it's just hilarious. So when it comes to hertz, hertz is a wave, okay? It's how you measure frequency. Frequency has to do with up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Alternating current has frequencies. So frequencies are like we talked about earlier, frequencies are like the waves of the sea going in and out. And the reason why we have these frequencies is because of Tesla, okay? If you look at our country, we use 60 hertz as our standard. And the reason that happened is because Tesla had his induction motor, and he found that it actually works better at 60 hertz. Plus, because you have to go up and down right there on that little wave, he saw that there was less flicker with the light bulbs at the time. So 60 hertz is what he recommended to Westinghouse, who ended up putting it into the Niagara Falls power plant, into everything else. And guess what became the norm for all of the United States? 60 hertz. You guys got it. So if you look at this map right here, do you see all the blue? That's 60 hertz. The rest of the world, all the red, is 50 hertz. And if you look at this little label right here, you'll see right there 50 to 60 hertz. So it can be used all over the world. The way it works is this. When it goes up, the light turns on. When it goes down, the light turns on. When it goes up, the light turns down. And it does those waves. A full wave is up and down is one wave. Got that? And it does that 60 times every second. So the question is, how many times is that light bulb opening up or turning on? How many times is that light bulb turning on within 60 seconds? 120. You guys got it. Okay? 120 times. Now, when we get to volts, volts has to do with pressure. And I'll explain a little bit more. Oh, I had my dad joke up there. I didn't even see that. Ah, you guys saw it, didn't you? Okay. So volts has to do with pressure. And obviously we have our dad joke for the volts. What kind of car does an electrician drive? A Volkswagen. You guys got it. Okay. So with pressure, when you have a negative and positive charge, getting these electrons to go one way or the other, the more pressure, the more they move, right? You're pushing the electrons one way or pulling them the other way, right? It's kind of like a kid stepping on a balloon. There's certain pressure on that balloon, but if an elephant went and stepped on that balloon, it's a different story, right? Have you guys ever seen metal being cut with water? Okay, it's because of the pressure. You have a thin piece of water going down, high pressure, and you're cutting metal, even thick metal, with water. That's the exact same thing, if you can imagine in electricity terms, that's the exact same thing when it comes to volts. It's pressure. Let's see what I put in there. So when this whole war of the currents happened, where Tesla and Edison were fighting, Edison made a point to make volts look so dangerous, okay, killing all these different things, that the United States government ended up saying that you're not allowed to have more than 100 volts in the whole United States. That way nobody kills each other, right? And they said, but you can go plus 10 or minus 10. So what do you think Westinghouse did? Let's go plus 10. And 110 volts became the standard for the whole United States. So when you look at the back of labels, you'll see 110, 115, 120. When you get to the 1930s or so, people are starting to use 115 because the more volts, the more efficient, the better it runs. Europe has an advantage on us because they're at 220 to 240. They can actually run things better at that amount. But because all this stuff happened with the war of the currents, we had to go down to 100, 110, right? And so with the 110, it went to 115 in the 1930s or so. People started using 120 in the 1950s and 60s. In 1984, they ended up making it so that it is the standard. 120 is the standard for the United States right now. Now, does that mean people still put 120 only on the labels? No, they're all over the place. It's 110, 115, 120, but it's allowed from 120, it's allowed to have a -5 to a +5 differential. So you look here on the map, it can go down to 113, it can go up to 127. Alternating current isn't the most efficient thing. It's not just 1 volt all the time. It's kind of going all over the place. That's one of the reasons why it has to be changed to direct current on computers and phones, because it'll mess up the phones or mess up the computers over time. So just to give you a little bit more here, let's see what I'm going to be talking about. So let's talk a little bit about volts when it comes to batteries, and then we're going to talk about volts later on with solar panels so you can understand how they work. But let's start with batteries because it's super easy to understand. You see here on the right-hand side is a 9-volt battery. Everybody knows what that is, right? And you look at these little batteries that we all have, right? These tiny batteries, and I'll just pull some out here. And these right here are how many volts? 1.5. The way it works is this. A lot of times we have to take this 1.5 and we have to end up adding another 1.5 to it and putting 2 together like that into a flashlight. If I put two together like this, it ends up adding the volts together. So 1.5 and 1.5 end up becoming 3. You guys get the idea. This is called series. In electrical terms, it's called series. There's a thing called parallel, and there's a thing called series. So I put a picture of the World Series up here, because what happens is one person's on base, the next person's on base, next person's on base, the next person's on base. I'm going to have 3 of you get up here. Come on up. So what happens is this. Let's get one more of you. Come on up. Is you guys are batteries right now, okay? And I'm going to have you turn this way, and you have 1.5 volts. You're going to turn this way and push on her. Okay, now she's got 3 volts. Okay, now she's got 4.5 volts, and now she has 6 volts. Do you see how we're pressuring her? The more we put pressure on her, the higher the volts. Remember, volts equals pressure. You guys got it. Thank you. You guys got the idea. So let's do this real quick. We put 6 batteries in a row in series, like the World Series, right? They're on the lines, just like that example I gave. 6 batteries in a row. 6 batteries in a row in series. What does that equal as far as volts go? I didn't put it up there. I thought I put it up there. It's 9 volts. You guys get the idea, okay? Now we got a 9-volt battery. The way a lot of people will do it is they end up putting it so that they go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Have you ever wondered why you have to alternate it? Because they're putting it in series, but they're trying to make it in a shorter, more compact space. Now we get to what's called amps. Have you guys heard of amps before? Okay, amps has to do with current. So, for example, say one electron is just hopping along, okay? What an amp is, if you add more electrons to the flow, it increases the amps. So the amps is the current. So let me give you an example. If you have a small stream, you can have like 1 amp, for example, or 5 amps or whatever. You have a big river, it could be 100 amps. The idea is it's more electrons are flowing at one time, okay? So maybe I'll have you guys come up again, right? Say you guys are batteries. Say you guys are batteries, and all of a sudden you have 1.5, 1.5 volts. But you guys don't want to get in a line anymore. You want to expand the area, okay? And you're 1 amp, you're 1 amp, you're 1 amp, right? what we're doing is we're increasing the amount of flow here, okay? So that there's more electrons going down at one time. So when you take, for example, let me take this. Let me see if I have a slide here. I don't. Do I have that? No, that's something else. So let's just do this real quick. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so that's what it was. Okay, so the idea is this. You guys now are creating more area for the electrons to go down. You're not in a line, but you're kind of going down. It's just like that big river. Yep. So you're increasing the amount of amps. Now, when you add amps to pressure, you get a lot of power, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Go ahead and sit down. Later on in this presentation, I'll just show you guys. I was going to show you guys, but maybe I'll show it to you now. Here's some batteries. I don't know if you can see it inside there. But if you were to take all these batteries and you have the positive and the negative, if you were to line them up together so they're all parallel to each other, you see that? If you have them parallel to each other, what that does is it doesn't increase the volts anymore. It increases the amps because now there's more current. If I did 15 of these, you can imagine it's a big river, right? It's getting to be a big river. You take one of these, it's a small stream. So where you put it in parallel like this, it increases the amps but doesn't increase the volts. You put it in series like this, okay, sideways, it's going to increase the volts but not the, because now you have a little skinny stream. Do you see that? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Am I making volts and amps pretty simple? Okay, you guys are getting it. So just to give you a feel for how powerful amps are, so you can see what they are, 1 to 5 milliamps, right? Okay, 1 amp is equal to 1,000 milliamps. So 1/1000th of an amp is a milliamp. 1 to 5 milliamps is going to be a little bit of electrical shock. You're going to have a little electrical shock, but nothing painful. 6 to 30 milliamps, you're going to have a painful shock, and you're going to lose muscle control. 50 to 150 milliamps, you're going to have extreme pain, possible severe muscle reactions, and possible respiratory arrest, and you might die. Okay? You get to 1 to 4 and 4.3 amps, right? 1 to 4.3 amps. And your heart ceases pumping, nerve damage, and you're going to die likely, right? You're probably, most likely you're dead. You get to 10 amps, and you have cardiac arrest, severe burns, and death for sure. Almost for sure, right? In our houses, we have 10 plus amps. The next thing that we're going to look at is what's called watts, and watts has to do with power. This is the cool part. If you understand this, you'll be able to understand how to measure the devices at your house. Watts is simply this. Volts times amps equals watts. Does that make sense? So what do we know about volts in our nation? 120. We don't even have to question it, right? It says 110, 115, whatever. Don't worry about that. Just use 120 every single time because it's rated for 120. Amps is going to go all over the place. I put up this picture here. I put up this picture here for you guys to see what I'm talking about. The pressure from the water above the dam is pushing down on the water below it. Because of that, you have a lot of volts. But because it's not just this little tiny hole, right? Not a hose from your front yard, but it's a gigantic hose, you have a lot of current or amps. So pressure times current or space to move or amount of electrons is equal to watts. You guys got it. Perfect. Yeah, to power. That's all it is. Looking at this right here, you're going to do a little bit of calculations. We know that 120 is the volts. And then we're trying to figure out what the watts is for this device. Anybody want to get out your calculators? Let's find out how many watts per hour this is. Okay, who has a calculator? Go ahead. 852. Let's see if you're right. 852. You got it. So we know right here 852 watts for this device. Super easy to figure out. Is everybody getting this? Yeah, so what you're doing is you're finding what the watt hours are, and we're going to talk about what that is. Okay? It's watts per hour. Okay? Is this getting easy? Are you guys figuring this out? You guys know more about electricity here than 99.99% of the world right now. And it's making sense? Okay, not over your head too much? All right, awesome. Let's keep going. So when it comes to emergency power, watts is the cool, popular child. It's the one that walks the halls and everyone's like, what's the watts? How many watts, you know? Some people talk amps here and there to sound really cool online and on YouTube, but in all reality, everybody wants to know what the watts are. There are two different things that you need to know about when it comes to watts. There's continuous watts and watt hours. Very, very different. Continuous watts has to do with how many watts can pass through a device at one time without blowing it up. This example up here, this picture I'm showing you right here, you have a little garden hose and then you have a fire hose. If I put the amount of water from the garden hose through the fire hose, is it a big deal? No, I mean, it can handle it easily. What if I took the amount of water from the fire hose and tried to put it through the garden hose? It'd blow up. It can't handle it. Some of these units right here, for example, and I'll just be facetious, but let's say, for example, that this is rated for 1500 watts continuous wattage, okay, continuous power. And I ended up hooking up a bunch of power to it to the point where I'm running 3000 watts of electricity through it. What's going to happen? You're going to burn it up. Just like putting your pedal to the metal in a car continuously, never letting it take a break, and after a while you break the engine down, right? So let's imagine the watt hours now. Let's understand watt hours. So let's understand watt hours now. Watt hours has to do with the battery capacity. So you have a 2-gallon jug of water, and then you have a 10,000 gallon pool. This battery right here might have, 3,000 watts in it. These are 3,000 watt hours, okay, inside this battery. You might have a 30,000 watt hour battery. That's like the pool, and this is like the 2-gallon. Does that make sense? That's the amount of power you can use before the battery dies, before the battery runs out. That's called watt hours. And I'll give you guys an example. Everybody knows about 100-watt light bulbs, right? We all grew up with that. If I have a 2,200 watt continuous watt, if I have a 2,200 watt continuous watt unit and it can handle 2,000 watt hours, how many hours can I run that 100-watt light bulb? 20. Hey, you guys are smart. Okay? Because what happens is I'm looking at the watt hours. I know how many watt hours I can use, right? And it's 2,000. Now 2,000 divided by 100 is 20. You guys got it. Okay, let's do another one. Say I have 20 of these light bulbs now when we're up to 2,000 watts. And I have the same unit with 2,200 continuous watts, and I have 2,000 watt hours. How many hours can I run this? 1 hour. You guys got it. You guys are understanding this really well. Good job. Now I have 2,500 watts, and I'm trying to put it through this unit that can handle 2,200 watts of continuous power. What's the problem? Yeah, you can't put it through that, right? It's taking the water from the fire hose and putting it through the garden hose. It's not going to happen. You're going to break down the machine very quickly. Do you understand the difference between continuous watts and watt hours? Let's do another one. We have a refrigerator. When you start it up, it has a peak of 600 watts, just to throw something out there. And then it goes down to 1/3 of that and just continually runs at 200 watts. Okay, starts up, gets cold, everything's good. You leave the door closed. You're not leaving it open it all day long. It's just going to run at about 200 watts. You have this 2200 watt continuous watt unit, and you have 2000 watt hours. How many hours can it run? 10 hours. You guys got it. You guys are getting this really well. Okay, don't be fooled in the industry, because what happens is a lot of people will end up telling you about their power units, and I see this all over the place. What they'll say is we got 2200 watts, 2200 watts, and because people aren't educated, they're going, cool, it's a 2200 watt power unit, right? But what they're not telling you is that it might be 800 watt hours. And what do you need during an emergency the most? You need more hours. You need that drink of the water from the pool, right? You need that 2 gallon thing of water. You're thirsty. You need that power. You can have all the continuous watts you want, but if there's no watt hours to run anything, it's stupid. But that's what a lot of these companies will lead with. They'll say 2200 watts, but they don't tell you what that means. Now you are educated enough to be able to go back to the company and say, what? Are those continuous watts or are those watt hours? Oh, really? They're continuous watts? What are your watt hours? And now you can figure that out. Okay? Let's go a little bit further. We have our refrigerator, and we have our 2200 watts, and we have 800 watt hours. How many hours can we run the refrigerator? 4 hours. You guys got it. You guys are doing awesome. Let's do another one. You have a unit that has 2200 continuous, 4800 peak surge. What that means is you turn on the refrigerator and it pops up to 600, right? You can peak surge 4800 without breaking the machine, but you can't keep it there. Okay? It can pop up there for a few seconds and then come back down. Not a big deal. But if you keep it there, it'll break it. You have a little over 2000 watts capacity, and altogether with all the batteries you added, you're getting up to 8000 watts. Okay? Same thing on this one right here, 3000, 6000, 3,000 roughly, and about 12,000. Let's put these into a little bit of a test, okay? Wait, what was I going to do with that? I have no clue what I was going to do with that. I thought I was going to show you guys panels, but I'm not showing you panels. So, okay, so I'll just talk about these a little bit. So the things you want to look at when you're looking at battery units to purchase is you're going to want to look at continuous watts. You're going to want to look at peak surges, which what that means is that if you plug in a bunch of things all of a sudden, sometimes like the refrigerator, it peaks up to 600, it goes back down to 200. You can do a quick surge and then go back down, but you don't want to keep it there because it'll burn it out. And then you have the capacity, which is the watt hours, and then you can add more batteries to it if you need to. So here's a couple examples just to show you what I'm talking about. Now, you also need to know your battery types. This is another big thing that companies will use to be able to scam you if you're not educated. Everybody knows about lithium-ion batteries, right? You heard about the phones that blow up on planes and catch fire. Nobody can put out the cars that are on fire and everything. That's lithium-ion batteries. When it comes to emergency preparedness, you want lithium-ion batteries. There's a big difference. Let me show you the difference. First of all, lithium-ion catches on fire, you're not going to be able to put it out. But the other thing is, lithium-ion also has less charges. You might get 500 to 700 charges before it starts creating a memory or losing power. Have you ever tried to charge a cell phone? You charge it to 100% and it dies super quick after that? That's what's happening with these lithium-ion batteries. You're using them and all of a sudden after so many charges, it just dies out. And by the way, you heard about how you want to charge things and then uncharge it, right? Use it all the way up. On lithium-ion and lithium-ion, you don't want to do that. If you can keep things charged, that's better for the battery. You know, if you get it down to 30%, recharge it. 30%, recharge it. It'll last a lot longer. It's different than the old batteries we used to use where we have to take out all the power and then charge it all the way back up.
Which one was that, the ion or
Both of them, lithium-ion and iron, both of them. Anything with the lithiums.
So now charge all the time.
Yeah, keep them charged. Don't use up the power. It'll keep the cycles going for a lot longer. So if you use this, for example, we're talking about 500 to 700 charges. That's using up all the power down down to nothing, right? You get 500 of those. Now, if you're letting it go down to 10%, 20%, 30%, you're going to get a lot more than 500. So it's the same thing with lithium iron batteries, which we'll talk about right now. Those are called LiFePO4, lithium iron phosphate, PO, phosphate 4, okay? Those will get about 3,500 cycles. Now, if you're not letting it charge down all the way, right, taking all the battery power out, but you're doing 10, 20, 30%, you're getting like 10,000, 12,000 cycles. You're getting a lot more because you're not using up the battery as quickly. The cool thing about these is that they don't blow up on you. And one of the people that was here in one of my classes, I was talking and they said, can we share a story? And I said, sure, yeah, go for it. They said, we had a lithium ion battery and we ended up having it start on fire. It started on fire in our house. It ended up burning down our whole house. Okay, it was their backup battery for emergencies. And the husband said, that was $1 million mistake. That's lithium ion batteries. Lithium iron, you don't have that problem. Okay, like for example, we're talking lithium iron here, right? Lithium iron here, lithium iron here, underneath. This one right here is a lithium ion battery from a long time ago that I bought back in the day when they didn't have lithium iron batteries. But this is a lithium ion batteries that I keep to show people. Well, you look at the what's in the description, and sometimes they don't tell you, so you have to find out. They'll call it lithium ion or iron or whatever, but they won't tell you. Or they'll say LFP, that's lithium phosphate, lithium LiFePO4, it's LFP. But this right here, one of the reasons why lithium ion is still used quite a bit is because it's smaller and lighter. You don't have to take up as much space where lithium iron is going to take up more space. But in an emergency, which one do you want? The safer one that you can use for a lot longer. Let's go ahead and go a comment right here.
Yeah, in that big box you got in your EMP box, most of those batteries are the lithium ion.
Lithium ion in these right here?
No, all your communication
totally.
devices.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
all those have that problem.
Yeah, exactly. All the cell phones, all the ham radios, everything is lithium ion batteries. Yeah, you're exactly right. And so when it comes to backup power, you want lithium iron. Does that make sense? Okay, let's talk a little bit about solar panels now. When it comes to solar panels, the best ones, the most efficient ones are the monocrystalline, better than polycrystalline. You can look at this slide right here and learn a little bit more about it. What did I say again? Oh, yeah. And they're both going to work. It's just monocrystalline is going to be better. The other thing you got to understand is how your power units work with your solar panels. If you understand what I just taught up to this point, this is going to be really easy for you. Because on the back of this is an open circuit voltage. Okay, it's called a VOC, or open circuit voltage, and it's going to be able to tell you exactly how much power can come through that. And then you have what's called the voltage. Okay, and that voltage is going to tell you, you're going to add that up to be able to figure out if it's going to work with your battery units. So we're going to do a couple exercises with this. You look at the back of the panel, you get these details, the watts and the voltage. Remember we talked a little bit about series and we talked about parallel, right? These two right here. Okay, parallel increases the amps, not the pressure, but the amps. The other one, right? When we're talking about the series, that increases the pressure. You got it. So the series increases the volts and parallel increases the amps or the current. Got that? Let me see what I have here. I'm going to use a couple examples here of some power units that we can plug in to figure out how many panels we can run on these power units. Right here we have a 900 watt maximum that you can run. This has to do with solar panel inputs. So with this unit right here on the left, you're allowed to put 900 watts of solar without messing it up, without burning it out. But you're also only allowed to have no less than 10 and no more than 145 volts. And then on the right-hand side, we have 2,400 watts as a maximum of solar input, and no less than 12, but no more than 150 volts. Here's 3 panels I'm going to use in this little example, or here are 3 panels I'm going to use to be able to help us learn this principle. We have a 200 watt panel that is 26.1 volts. You have a 350 watt panel that's 46.5 volts. You have a 420 watt panel that's 44.3 volts. And by the way, one important thing is never mix and match panels. You'll look at this panel right here. I don't know if Kyle, you can see it. If I were to connect this panel to another panel, I would want the exact same panel to connect it to. I'm not going to mix and match another panel with different volts and everything else. He could probably tell us, but I know that the manufacturers warned us never ever to do that because it'll mess it up.
The voltages are different on every panel, and they'll compete with each other and fight and put out a lot less power.
Yeah.
It's not going to really hurt anything. It just won't put out the power you want.
Is that what it is? Okay. I know.
Have as much power.
Okay, that's good to know. I know that the manufacturers I've been working with, they warned me never ever to do that. And I'm like, what's going to happen, you know? So say again?
They want you to buy their panels.
That's exactly it. Buy more of our own panels. So I didn't know that. So it makes it less efficient. Is that what it is? Okay. And by the way, he does solar. You know, he knows this stuff really, really well. He's done quite a bit of energy work.
And if you mix and match them, a lot of these solar power generators have 2 PV inputs.
Okay.
And if they have 2 PV inputs, you can mix and match. Because,
Okay, that's right.
Because they're separate MPP controllers.
That's right, and that is a good point. If you have 2 different inputs, you can have a different solar array on one. And array is a bunch of solar panels together. Did I lose? Did it die? Can you guys hear me? Test 1, 2. Check, check, check. Okay, it seems to have gone down. Kyle, did it go down? Okay, it sounds like do you hear what I'm talking about? Can you bring it up just a tiny bit? There. Now it's normal again. Just a tiny bit more. Okay, awesome. Okay, what a solar array is when you have a bunch of panels, it's called an array. And if you take that array and you plug it into one part of the power unit, you can have all the same there and then a whole different array for the other plug that he's talking about. I just never knew the reason, so that's awesome. It's just, it won't blow anything up. It's just going to make it less efficient, right? Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So let's do a couple of these. You have your power unit on the left, you have your array or your panels, you have your solar panels on the right, you have your power unit on the left, you have your solar panels on the right. Let's figure this out, okay? What do I want to say here? Okay, so this is the question. Here's the question I'm going to ask you. Knowing the amount of watts that the power unit can handle and knowing the amount of volts that the power unit can handle, how many of these panels or how many of these solar panels can we actually plug into this power unit? Okay, we cut one in half, right? Okay, so you can fit 4. You guys got it. You can do 4 panels because 800 watts is where it tops out, and it gets to 104.4 volts. Let's do another one. How many of these panels can I fit on this power unit? Okay, you guys got it. 2, because I'm maxing out the watts already. Let's do another one. 420 watt panel. How many of these panels can I put on this power unit? 2, because it's maxing out the power, right? At 840 watts. All right, here's another one. Different power unit. Let's go back to the first panel again, the first solar panel. How many of these panels can I connect to this power unit? Yeah, you guys weren't looking at the volts, were you? Everybody said 12, but then you didn't look at the volts. So I can do 5 panels on this one. I'm going to max out the volts at 130.5 right there, which is close to 150. You guys ready for the next one? Was that tricky? Yeah, you guys were doing the other one. Yeah, you bet. Let's get the microphone over here.
So it seems like in your examples, these solar panels are connected in series.
Yes.
They're not connected in parallel.
Yes.
Is that
Thank you.
always the case when you're doing this kind of preparedness work? Or?
So I've always done it in series. Is there ever a time we do it in parallel?
Yes.
On a house you would, right? No? But I want to hear.
Even in this situation, you could put 10 panels on this.
By doing it in parallel?
By putting 2 of the 5 panels in parallel with each other, which would still be under your 2,400 watts.
Oh my goodness.
And also under the voltage. You can put 10 panels on this.
Boy, I'm
situation.
going to have to redo all my slides now. So how do we make that simple for people that are watching this video right now?
Basically, you just take those 5 panels that you're putting in series and get another 5 panels and then put those in parallel with the other 5.
Okay, so the problem is...
It's like taking 5 batteries in series and 5 batteries in series and then parallel the 2.
Okay, so five in series, and parallel the 2. So in other words, let's go ahead and do this. And I'll just bring this up here. Now, the only problem is there any problems with the resistance? Because the resistance goes down on the parallel.
No.
And it's totally fine, right?
Yep.
Not going to burn anything out?
No, it's not.
Okay, sounds good. So what you're saying is you have 5 panels, right? And a small one right there, okay? And these are all connected where you have a power coming in, and this is all in series, and then the power coming out. This comes to the battery unit. That's called series, okay? Here's the battery unit right there, okay? And then what he's saying is that you take another 5, okay, right here in series. I'll do smaller this time so we can fit all 5. So these are all in series as well, right there, but now you're connecting them in parallel right there, and that works. That's so cool. Is there just a Y connector at that point?
Y connector, or you could just wire nut right at the solar panels or at the solar power generator. You could just connect the wires together somehow.
Straight down. You can do a Y connector at the power unit or to the panels.
Or at the array, yeah.
That's awesome. So you taught me something new today. Thank you for doing that. So in this case right here, do the math with me. Let's go back to the slide and take a look at it. We've got 5 panels, right, that go up to 1,000 watts. We add another 5, but now at that point, would it be 261 volts or no?
It's the same volts because the volts are in parallel.
That's right. So it'd be the same, right? Okay, so it's not adding it at all because we're doing parallel of the 2.
The voltage, the 5 panel voltage is going to be the same on both.
Okay, so we have those and then we do it in parallel. I think I see what you're saying. Okay, so it's still going to be 130.5 volts, but now we got 2,000 watts out of it.
You got twice the current.
Man, that's awesome. So thank you. So twice the current. So now that you guys know volts and watts and amps and parallel and series, okay, you guys are learning along with me. So
And
that's
in
really
this
awesome.
case, they all have to be exactly the same kind of panel.
Yeah. So this right here, we're not allowed to mix different arrays.
Correct.
They have to be exactly the same array. So that was worth the price of admission today, by the way. Okay, that was awesome. Okay, so with that in mind, let's do the next one. You guys ready for this? It's going to get a little bit more complicated. That's where you can keep going back and watching this over and over. Okay, here goes. We got a 350 watt panel, 46.5 volts. And how many panels can we do here? 3. Okay. That's what I was going to say. So if we did 3, let's do the math here. Let's do this. Let's do the new math here. You ready? All right. So we have 3 that we can do, right, to get to. Let me just snap this forward. 3 panels is going to give us 139 volts. Okay, so let's see if we can you see on the screen okay there, Kyle? Okay, so we got 130 139 volts, right? With 3 panels. These panels are put in series. So you have positive and negative, okay? The wires going here. You have the power unit down here. Okay, how many watts are we talking about? 1050 watts. What we just learned right here is you can do another 3, right? Help me out here.
Yes.
What's it going to be at this point? We have 3 more. What are the volts at this point? They're exactly the same. So it's still 139 volts, but we just connected these 2 arrays that are exactly the same panels in parallel. And then we're bringing it down to the power unit right down there. So how many watts now do we have? 2100. That's so cool. So thank you for...
One other thing to keep in mind, you can only do 2. According to the National Electrical Code, you put 3, it's against code.
So you're not allowed to do more than,
More than 2
parallel units.
More than 2 parallel units, yes.
Now, is that, again, is it because of the resistance, or is it, has it...
That's because if you get a short in the circuit somewhere, the wires won't get overheated.
Okay, because what happens when you put things in parallel, there's a thing called ohms that we're going to talk about here, but when you put things in series, it increases the resistance. When you put them in parallel, it decreases the resistance. And so it brings down the ohms. So what you're saying is it's going to get too hot.
Well, I'm saying the wires you run from the solar panels to the power generator are only good for like 8 amps or 10 amps.
Okay.
And if you put more panels, it'll exceed that amperage rating on the wire.
Okay, so it wouldn't be able to handle it. Cool, awesome. All right, do you guys want to do one more? This is kind of fun now. I'm enjoying this new learning. Okay, let's do this one right here. I'll erase this. Okay, look at the new slide and tell me how many panels can we do of those? Oops, hold on a sec. Is that it? Is that the right one? No, it's this one. Okay, how many panels can we do of these? Okay. So you guys got it. So let's get 3. If we did 3 in series, and we have them connected to each other and a positive and a negative coming down, and the wires running all the way down, right? We have 3 connected. How many volts are we up to? Okay. What is it? 132.9 volts. Okay. Now at that point, how many watts are we doing? 1260 watts. Now in that case right there, you're pushing the machine at that point, right? Yeah, so at that point, we can't do another parallel. Because if we're at 1260 watts, then it's going to take us over the 2400. There might be a little bit of a give there, right? You can probably give a little bit.
You can throw in the practicality of it.
Yeah.
And the actuality, a panel that's rated at 420 watts really only puts out about 80% of that.
Yeah.
Plus, so you have about 20% leeway.
Plus the sun angle and everything else we're talking about, right? Winter sun and everything else. So if it's that close right here, as a pro in this, would you, I mean, we're at 1260, we're allowed to do 2400 watts. And if we double this, we're at, what is that, 2520, right? 2520 watts. So we're over the 2400. As an electrician, as a solar expert, would you have any problem putting that together?
No, I would not. And
Okay.
another factor in this is when you put a solar panel in the sun, it gets hot. The power and voltage go down as it gets hot.
Because of the
So
resistance.
when it starts working, the power goes down. So you got that 20% leeway, really.
So we're good here. So if it doesn't go over like 10, 20%, we're fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, how many panels can we do? You guys got it, okay? So let's do this. And we put this again in series, bring it down, make this parallel. These 2 are parallel now. And so we still have 132.9 volts, so we're good there. And because of the inefficiencies of the solar panel or the time of day or winter or whatever else, we're still pretty safe. At what point, I'm going to ask you, at what point would you say, if it's 2400 watts, At what point would you say don't go over
I think 20% is the number.
20%?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? 3,000 watts, roughly?
Yes.
2880? Okay, so 20% is what you would say would be the most you would go up to.
How much you go over the
And you'd feel
2400.
totally comfortable with that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
awesome.
do it all the time.
Do you really? Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, cool. You guys, wasn't that cool? Oh my goodness. Seriously, like I love this because I get to learn as well as I get to be the teacher and I get to be the student. So thank you so much about that. All right, now that we're really clear on panels and series and parallel and everything else, let's talk about ohms. Remember, we were going to get into that term. Ohms has to do with resistance. Okay? What is the electrician's favorite chant? Ohm. You guys got it. You're getting on. You're like catching on with my dad jokes here. This is pretty good. Okay. So if we were to take the volts, the amps, and the resistance or the ohms, this is what it looks like. If you're able to take a high pressure with a lot of amperage and reduce it, right, create more resistance, then all of a sudden you can do that example of the cutting the steel would be this, right? You have high resistance with a lot of pressure, and that water's coming through and cutting steel because of the resistance. Does that make sense? That's what this is. Usually you do not want a lot of resistance or ohms because the ohms create heat and the heat creates, or the resistance creates heat and the heat creates resistance. So when you're setting up your solar array, you need to figure out what ways or what type of wires you would need, how long you need to run them and everything else to not create that resistance, especially on hot days and everything else. That's called gauge. So a wire gauge. It's AWG, all American wire gauge. The funny thing about it is you would think that they would say if the number gets higher, it gets thicker because then you can go indefinitely, right? But it's the opposite. The lower the number, the thicker the wire. The thicker the wire, the less resistance or heat. So when I used to be a DJ, when I was my first business, when I was 15 years old, right? I was a DJ. I needed to run wires to my speakers, and I was actually doing what's called parallel with the speakers. So we had 8 ohm speakers, 8 resistance speakers, right? 8 ohm speakers, and I was putting them in parallel. What that did, it brought down to a 4 ohm speaker, which made it go a lot faster because the resistance was cut in half. If I put those speakers in series, it would have gone to a 16 watt, okay? Or 16 ohm speaker, okay? It would be more resistance, okay? With that in mind, I was trying to figure out how do I run these speakers 100 feet over there and not ever have any problems with it. Well, what did I have to do? Use Bluetooth. This is back in the 80s. Bluetooth. I had a thicker wire. That's exactly it. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to bring it back on you. Okay? I tell people to do 10 gauge if they're going to be running it, say, 50 to 100 feet.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, because when my first solar power generator, I just bought a regular extension cord, 16 gauge, ran at 50 feet.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do it. The solar panel didn't put out hardly anything.
Yeah.
I had to go to 12 gauge or 10 gauge. So 10 gauge or 12 gauge and you're good.
Yeah. So I would say 10 gauge is pretty safe.
Yes.
And that's what I would tell people to do. If you're going to run it really, really far, I'd go down to 8 gauge. But 10 gauge is going to do most of everything you need for an emergency. You're probably never going to run it past 100 feet outside your house.
And you can buy the wire, like this extension cord, 10 gauge extension cords are reasonably inexpensive.
Yeah, you can take extension cords, cut them up, or whatever else. You're right. Let's go ahead, comment right back here.
Is there a downside to going to smaller gauge number?
No, it's just going to be really expensive. So you don't need to pay more money if you don't need to. Does that make sense? It's going to be bigger. So smaller gauge means a bigger wire. And I'll give you an example. So these are the ones I have in my house. right here, and you could use extension cords. You can use whatever you want. Okay, these are ones I have. I have a bunch of these. This is what people use for solar panels, and they have the universal connectors. They have everything, and I have a bunch of these, so I can run. I got a ton of panels. A ton of panels, like a lot of panels. So what I need is I need those panels to be able to hook up in series. So right next to each other, I'm just connecting them super easily. And then I need long ones like this to be able to run that series back to my power unit. So I need two long ones from one side of the solar array and the other side of the solar array to come back all the way to my power unit. Does that make sense? That's why I have these. These are 10 gauge. So let's find the clicker right there. Let's go to the next thing. 10 gauge is what I recommend. You can go down to 8 if you need to. These are the things that you're going to want to get. Okay, make sure you get some type of wire. You're going to want to get MC4 connectors are the most universal. If you're going to use an MC4 connector, you're going to want a crimping tool. Do we have the crimping tool? I gave you guys one here. Celeste, do you have that? Yeah, bring it over here. If you live close to here, I actually brought my tools and left them here for anybody to come in with your wires and go ahead and crimp everything here. Say again? She did it for you? That's awesome. Yeah, the crimping tools can cost quite a bit, but just come on in. If you are at home and you're doing this and you have a bunch of people in your group that you're doing it for, I'll go in and pitch in, grab one of these, and all of you guys can use it, and you can get a bunch of these MC4 connectors if you need to. But right here, if you guys ever need it, this strips the wire right here, and this crimps the wire right here. You think you can just go out and get some pliers and crimp it, and it doesn't work. Okay, it's never going to get a good enough connection. Let's go ahead and do microphone over here.
My favorite is soldering connections because you have continuous metal.
Yep.
And you're not going to have corrosion on the surface of the metal touching another corroded surface of metal.
Yep. That's not a bad thing to do. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to get into calculating your watt needs. Everybody get your papers out online and get your papers out here. We're going to go through and figure out roughly how many watts you guys need. Okay? I've got a whole bunch of examples of here, and I'm probably going to capture most of the stuff that you guys have on your sheets of paper. But in any case, you're going to go home, and now that you know volts and you know amps, and you can look at the back of your devices or look them up online and find the device that you have that you're trying to run, you're going to be able to figure out what the continuous watts are and what the watt hours are. Right now, we're talking about watt hours. And what that is watts per hour. So if you're running a 100-watt light bulb, you're doing 100 watts per hour on that light bulb. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and pick the things on your sheets and go ahead and give some of the watt hours. How many watts per hour for those items? I'll give you guys a few minutes. If you need to pause the video and work on this, just go ahead and do that and come back when you're ready. So Kyle, while we're giving them just a few minutes, go ahead and focus in on the screen for the people online, just to look at it, and then we'll come back. I'll give them a little view of it. Is this making electricity pretty easy for you guys? You guys are getting this, right? Awesome.
Goes down to 200.
Yeah, and that's an example.
Well, like I said, we were talking about earlier, a typical refrigerator, you don't know how much it's going to go on and off. A typical refrigerator's 1,500 watt hours per day on average.
Yeah, and the idea is we're going to figure it out per hour right now, and then we're going to figure out how many per day after we add everything up.
Well, you don't know how many hours the refrigerator runs, so.
That's true.
1,500 watt hours in a day. In a day. Yeah, and if it's not Energy Star rated, it's like more like 4. So again, old fridge will draw about 3 or 4 times more.
Like 4,000.
4,000 instead.
4,000 if it's not Energy rated.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have a 10-year-old fridge, it's going to draw a lot more
It's
power.
going to take a ton. Yep. And so with this exercise right now, just to let you guys know, I'm going to have you guys actually just figure it out for now, just for fun. But those of you at home, I don't want you just to guess. I don't want you to use this slide. I want you to actually go to every single thing that you're looking at, every appliance, and I want you to put in the actual numbers. I want you to figure out what those are, okay? Do we need a microphone?
The real number isn't the actual running wattage. For example, a refrigerator might have a running wattage, but it's not running continuous. So that
Yeah.
kilowatt that could measure it will tell you the percentage of time that it's on, and that gives you the useful power.
That's
that
a good
it's
idea.
using.
We can get some more tools. That's true. The thing is, I'm okay going rough because I'm always going to go a little bit more power, and I'm okay with that. So
Well, most of those things aren't on all the time.
yeah, that's why we put down how many hours a day you think you're going to be running it. Does that make sense? So on that,
But it would be hard to know when the refrigerator compressor is on. You could sit by it and write down the time every time it goes on and off.
yeah.
Or you could just let the device tell you, come back a day later.
That's true. You can get the device if you want to. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're just figuring out roughly how many hours that you're going to be using these devices and roughly how many watts you're going to be using in an emergency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you could just do a refrigerator example for me, I think I get it. But right now, I'm totally lost.
Okay. So say right here I put down 200 watts per hour because I don't know if it's Energy Star. I don't know if it's everything else. But for example, if you put down 200 times 24 is 2,400 watts. Does that make sense? So you're just doing 200 on that sheet. Just put down 200, and then you're going to run it for 24 hours. So 24 hours. Is that what it is? Hold on. 200 times 20, that's right, 48 if it's inefficient. If it's an inefficient fridge, 4,800.
No, it would be 4,800.
24 times 200, right?
24 times 2.
Yeah, so this again, what we're doing here, you guys are going to go home and figure out the real thing.
Right.
Does that make sense? I'm just giving you some examples here.
Yes.
That's why there's a little squiggly line in front of all these, because we don't know exactly what it is.
Watts per hour.
Yep.
In actuality, you can actually go online and type in the model number of your fridge.
Yeah.
And if it's Energy Star rated, it tells you how many kilowatt hours it'll use in a year.
That's awesome.
And
And then
that's
divide
what's
it by,
yeah, so you can
divide by 365.
Right.
Yeah, that's easy.
So that's another way to do it.
I love that. I love your comments, by the way. Thank you for bringing these up. Okay, so those at home, hopefully you guys are doing this. Those here, is this helping out? You guys getting down the power? Okay. Once you know, okay, let's go ahead and come back onto me when you're ready, Kyle. Okay, hopefully you guys had enough time to be able to figure out the watts and how many hours you're going to be running these devices. Now, if you look at the sheet, I've made it super easy for you guys because what are you going to do? You're going to take how many hours, how many watts per hour, you're going to times those up, and then you're going to get the total watts needed, watt hours needed for that device. Okay? For one day. All right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to add all those up below. You're going to see that it's going to add up all the watts per hour, watt hours. Okay? And that's going to give you your continuous watts. Then you're going to find out if the battery unit's going to be able to handle the amount of power that you're sending to it, or if it's going to blow up. Is it going to? Are you putting a fire hose through a garden hose or not? That's what that is. Then you're going to take the next section to the right of that, and that you're going to add up the total watt hours needed, and that's going to give you how many watt hours you need per day. Does that make sense? Now you're going to do this exact thing for those of you online. you're going to do this exact thing for your want to haves, and you're going to figure out your continuous watts and your watt hours for the want to haves. Now the want to haves can be adjusted. You might sit there and say, oh my goodness, I'm using 12 kilowatts of energy every single day. I don't really need to run those things during an emergency all day long. I might want to run them for 1 hour. So your want to haves are negotiable, but your have to haves are not. So that way you can figure out how much power you need. When you figure that out, you're going to go to your totals at the bottom of this sheet, okay? Right down at the bottom, you're going to go to your totals, and you're going to figure out, after you decide how many of your want to haves you want to have, okay? And then you have to have your have to haves. You're going to put in how many continuous watts you want, and you're going to put in how many watt hours you want. And you're going to put in those two spaces.
Another thing to consider on the continuous watts is that not everything's going to be running at the same time.
Yes.
So you're going to have to say, how many things do I think the maximum number are going to run at the same time? And that's what you should use on continuous watts.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's I think I did my math here right, didn't I? Where I'm putting it where you do the watt hours to figure out the continuous watts. I guess not.
I think it's going to be overrated.
Yeah, it is going to be overrated. You're right. I just didn't think about that. So I need to change this a little tiny bit. Okay, so with the continuous watts, I have to think that out, how to make that simple.
I'll show you how.
You have a good way? Okay, so we'll have to figure out a good way to make that simple. But usually, just to let you guys know a little bit tidbit of information, typically when I buy a battery unit, I never hit the continuous watts with the stuff I'm running. Okay, like obviously if you're putting in a whole bunch of heaters and running your whole AC unit for your house and everything, you're going to hit it. But most people aren't that dumb. Okay. They're going to look at it and say, okay, I got a big enough unit. It has plenty of continuous watts because usually the continuous watts are going to be more than watt hours, okay? And you're going to be able to plug everything else you need to at one time. In fact, that's how you do it. How many of these things would you? Here's the thing I want you guys to do. On the sheet, I want you to pick all the things that you could run at the exact same time, okay? Exact same time. Pick all those things, and that's what you're going to add up for your continuous watts. You're going to have all your have to haves are any of those running at the exact same time, because anything that you can possibly be running at the exact same time, that's going to become your continuous watts. Does that make sense? So do a little bit of thinking there to figure out what your total continuous watts is at the very bottom there if you're running all those items at the exact same moment at any time during the emergency.
That is a good way. Except you got to also realize if you were to exceed the power of the continuous watts of the unit, it's not going to destroy it. It's just going to kick off and reset.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you go over, it's not a bad deal.
Yeah, it's not gonna kill it.
It's not going to kill it and
it's
destroy it.
It's just going to turn it off.
It's going to turn it off,
So
and it'll restart
and
itself
reset
in a few minutes.
Yeah. And I did that the other day, by the way, and it turned off, and I was like, bummer. And then I just waited a few minutes and came back on. So
it's not a big deal to go over.
Yeah. But it's good to know what you're going to be running so you can get close to those continuous watts and you're not going to be, needing more, right, during an emergency. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so here's my suggestion. And I'm trying to make this super, super easy for people. Once you figure out what your total watt hours are that you need, your total watt hours that you could be running in a 24-hour period, my suggestion is go out and get that many in batteries. It's going to be a little bit more than you need, probably about 20% more than you need, okay? But get that amount of batteries or go down about 20%. So if you add up everything that you have here, some of you have 10,000 watt hours. So you go out and get 10,000 watt hours worth of batteries or go down to 8,000 at the least. The next thing I'm going to recommend that you do is figure out the panels using parallel and series like we just learned today, okay? Parallel and series, and get 30% of whatever watt hours you're getting, get about 30% in panels because you're going to get the majority of your power during the daytime in about 4 hours every day. And you need to make sure that you are having enough power for the nighttime. I'm going to give So this right here, let me just see what I put in here. I guess I told you guys what to do here. So the big thing is, on this slide, if you take a look at it, you're going to calculate your continuous watts that you need, okay? You're going to calculate your continuous watts that you want, that you decided that you need, okay? And then you're going to figure out what the total is. That will be the total in batteries, and then you take the 30% of that, and that's going to be how many watts of solar panels you should get. Keeping it very simple without overcomplicating it so your brain doesn't explode with math. Okay? And from the resident expert, what do you think? Is that okay?
I'm looking it over.
Yeah. So basically we're talking about if we have a 10 kilowatt hour system,
You have a 10 kilowatt hour battery.
Would you say
you
about
need about a 3,000 watts?
about 3,000 watts of solar?
Yes.
So that's
But
about
that
right.
had nothing to do with continuous watts. Just the
Yep,
watt hours.
just the watt hours.
Yes.
So from the resident expert, my calculations are about right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you do. Now you got two of us saying it, okay? And he's the pro and I'm the wannabe, okay? But that's what I calculated. When I was trying to figure this out, I did a whole bunch of different calculations, and I'm trying to figure out how can I make this so easy that people don't have to overthink it. And I kept coming down to about 30%. I'm like, about 1/3, that's what it is. And that just makes it super easy so people don't have to overwhelm themselves with trying to figure out how many panels and everything else. So 1/3, okay, 30% roughly.
I thought Marcelo was crazy when he first said that. I did all the complicated calculations, came up with the same number.
Really? So
yeah, so it all works.
Really? Man, thank you. You make me feel good. You make me feel smart. I got the really smart guy here, and he's saying, wow, you did a good job. Thank you.
Exactly.
Appreciate that. Were you going to say something? Or? No, I just said okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So here's some extras to consider to be able to wrap this up for tonight. You can get some hybrid inverters if you want to. So you can hook up AC power from the city to be able to charge your batteries anytime you want to with the AC coupling. Okay, you get some smart home panels that'll click on automatically if the power goes on and just be able to power anything anytime you want to, okay, when things go bad. And you can also do a manual switch where you can switch it over to your emergency power if you ever need to during an emergency. There's some suggestions I'm going to give you to wrap up tonight's class. First of all, set up your system ahead of time and figure out where you're going to put your solar arrays, your solar panels. You want them facing south. You want them at a degree, depending on where you are in the United States, probably about a 30 to 45 degree angle. It's going to be different in the winter than it is in the summer because the summer the sun is higher and in the winter it's lower in the northern hemisphere, right? And so you're going to want to figure out where we're going to put our panels so it hits as much south end as possible throughout the day. Are we going to move it, east, south, and west during the day, or we're just going to leave it? I'm too lazy. I'll probably leave it, right? Make sure everything's good. Where's a safe place to put it where people aren't going to take it, steal it, or whatever else? When you have it out there, where are you going to put your power unit? So how much cord do you need? Okay, so you're going to want to have plenty of cords, and you're going to want to have plenty of extension cords. Okay, so I brought some examples. I've got so many extension cords at home that I can plug into my 20,000+ watt hours of power at home, where I can run lights in another room if I need to with my extension cords. So have plenty of extension cords. You'll thank yourself for having enough extension cords. Depends on how, if you want heavy duty, depends on how far you're running them, right? Remember the gauge thing? So if it's running a long distance, you want a heavier gauge.
You might want to run one heavy duty one into the house and smaller ones from that point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to do it as well. And what's it called? The power strips, using power strips as well. Next thing I would say is limit the use of electrical appliances more during the daytime, if possible, to allow the batteries to recharge more during the daytime. There's a thing called continuous power where you can be charging these things up and using them at the same time during the daytime. And it's not continuous power, sorry. It's a pass-through power. It's called pass-through power. So it passes through so that you can use the batteries during the daytime while they're charging. Just try not to use them if you don't need to during the daytime. And let it charge up as quickly as possible. Next thing is keep the battery power units out of the sun. Don't leave these out with the panels like some people do. That's why you want enough cords to be able to run it into the house, into a cool place, and then leave these in a cool place where somebody's not going to steal them also. Be careful of leaving, be careful, the point I was talking about, be careful of leaving portable solar panels out at night due to theft. So you want to figure out where it's the best place to put them. If you do have portable ones, maybe you have to take them in every night. Clean off your panels like dust, snow, so they work more effectively, more efficiently. Keep your panels facing the sun, south, for example, and watch your angles so you can get more power quickly. And figure that you're going to get most of your power within 4 hours every single day. That's the calculation that you made me feel good about.
And I found last year, I normally mount solar panels to the roof with bolts and nuts and all kinds of connectors.
Yeah.
Well, I did an experiment last year. I put 6 solar panels, just laid them on top of the shingles.
Yeah.
They're still up there. The wind hasn't blown them out. I've been running the solar power generator for a year like that.
And you just put them on there.
The wind, since they right against the roof, the wind can't pick them up.
Oh, I love it.
I can't believe how good it worked.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So the point is, set it up ahead of time, figure out how many cords you need, see how long of cords you need. Just do it one time. If you do it one time, you'll have enough confidence. If you guys want to, you can go one step further, and on top of the little power unit that you have, you can actually do a diagram so you don't forget. So you can show how many panels you're going to hook up. That way you don't go over the amount of power. You're going to figure out if it's parallel, series, whatever you're going to do. You create that diagram, you laminate it, stick it on there, and you know exactly what to do during an emergency, so you don't have to go back to this course, try to figure it out right on the spot. It's done. Okay, you did the homework ahead of time. That would be my only last suggestion. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you guys to finish it up. What did you learn? What did you like? What was new for you today? I know for me personally, I loved having you here because you taught me that parallel thing that I didn't even think of at all. So that was awesome. But what other things did you guys learn, like, were reminded of, want to do differently or want to implement into your preparedness? Let's go ahead and have a few of you. Go ahead.
I like the idea of being able to connect multiple arrays of panels and getting the most efficiency in the charge and the time that you have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, what else? What else came to your guys' mind? Things that you liked today, things that you learned. Let's go about 2 more. Go right there.
The discussion on the Faraday cages.
Yep, that was awesome. Yeah, let's go one more right here.
And it's nice that actually you can have a system. You can break it down into numbers and actually have it instead of this big anomalous thing that you don't know what you're doing with.
Yeah.
Now you've got a formula. It's
Yeah.
great. It gives you confidence, like you said.
By the way, I put this together. I was trying to figure out what to do for you guys because I was going to give a whole different presentation. And I went till 5:30 this morning and slept for 3 hours and just kept going. My thought was last night, do I want to give this much stuff or not? Are you guys okay? Are you grateful I did that? Was that helpful? Okay, anybody feel overwhelmed? Okay, a little tiny bit. Thank you for being honest. So the idea is this: you guys can go back to the video over and over once I finish editing this. You can go over and over till you get this. But the information in here, again, you learn it, you get the right system, you set it up once, you get your little cheat sheet chart, you're done. You're done. Okay? It's not hard at that point. You have your plan. You know what you're going to run. You made your house more efficient already. Okay? Everything's done. So you'll love it in the end. Okay? Yeah, did you have one more comment?
Yeah, I think the difference between the ion, the iron batteries.
Yeah, ion
made a
and iron.
difference.
Yeah, a LiFePO 4, right? That's what you want. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Awesome, thank you. Okay, well, thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for, that was a long class and you guys did amazing. And hopefully you learned something, and give yourselves a hand. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Okay. We got through, you guys.